Sorry, I didn't have it.
And we're live. This is, I see yours. This is Monday, June 11th. It is 2018. It's 4:30 p.m. We are having a work session tonight, so we appreciate everybody that is tuning in as well. And we're going to roll right downhill. We're starting off with number 4, but we do have some proclamation of retirement for James Capps. Wow, this guy's been working for the city since 1540s. We're going to have some Mayor's Awards, National Fire Academy presentation from Chief Trexel, sweet, which brings us to number 4. Consideration of plans and specifications for the 2018 Central and Washington Street bridge repairs. Mr. McGregor.
I have a pretty simple little PowerPoint. Oh, you put those on there. I put a PowerPoint on the computer. I didn't need to show all the pictures. Just an idea of what the plans are. This project is something that we have in the fiscal 19 budget, budgeted for $350,000. The Central Street Bridge, just giving you an idea, reference of what it is. If you would hit the next slide. There is some abutment issues that we have from some water damage. There's no structural concern with the bridge. We just want to try and take care of these issues now so they don't perpetuate into something worse down the road. I don't have a final cost estimate in front of me. I should have that by next week. I don't think there's another slide. I think I just put that one on there. But it's a relatively simple processes. There's some wing walls that need to be repaired, especially off the Dresser-Rand site. There was one that was leaning pretty bad. Essentially, that just helps with erosion concerns around it. But we will be going out to bid after the public hearing next week, since it's a fiscal 19-year project. Kind of let the work happen as it needs to. A little longer duration for the work has been kind of the process we've been going through. So, if there's any questions, I can prepare them for next week. I think Stanley may be able to come down.
You doing any deck improvements too?
Deck improvements?
Yeah.
Not on this process, but I know that there was a dropped panel on the east side of Washington Street on the westbound lane. There'll probably be a change order of the project.
Okay. Are you? What's this going to entail?
They're going to go. There will be some lane restrictions as they're doing some of the work. They'll have to go into the abutments and do some sock cutting and do some patching.
You guys good? Good.
Yep.
Thank you, sir. Next, consideration of a permanent encroachment agreement with Tom Wool for encroachment into city right-of-way at 801 Jefferson Street, Burlington, Iowa. Mr. Tislin.
This is for encroachment on the east side of the building. A couple of years ago, Mr. Wolf got an encroachment for some stairs into the property. He has residents at this location on the side access, and then there's some commercial tenants on Jefferson Street. The entire building's 801 Jefferson, but his residence is on 221 North 8th Street, and that's where the stairs are located. So currently he has the existing stairs into the building with a doorway access on that east side, and he's wanting to have a ramp for better access into the building, accessible access. So as I stated, he was approved for an existing encroachment for the stairs a couple years ago, and this would just be amending that to include the ramp and platform there for better access into the building. Again, this is a dead-end street. That through street has been closed. There's very little pedestrian traffic here, but would maintain over 5.5 feet of clear sidewalk.
You guys good?
Mayor? Not on this topic, but if you're done with this one, just to go back on that last one. We had hired Stanley Consultants a little over a year ago to do an evaluation of that bridge work. So 3 of our council members weren't involved with that process. We had out of that, we got a whole list of different items that were high priority, medium priority, low priority, things that needed to occur to get.
They broke it out in time frame of years to try and get the things corrected. To try and piecemeal it like that throughout the next 5 years probably is more costly than to just get it all done at one shot. So that's the reason why we put the plans and specs together as one larger package. It is an estimate of $350,000 in the next fiscal year through general obligation / TIF funds.
So I don't think that we have several council members who probably never saw that list of items that need to be accomplished and the potential cost estimate that would go with it. Would it be possible just to have that in a packet for the next time?
I could do that.
Okay.
I'd appreciate that.
Thank you, sir. So is there anything else on the number 5? Okay. Number 6 is a motion for final adoption of an ordinance repealing Chapter 122 Peddlers, Solicitors, and Transit Merchants and creating a new Chapter 122 Peddlers, Solicitors, Mobile Food Vendors, and Transient Merchants. Mr. Tisley, anything on that?
No changes from the previous 2 readings. Again, primarily just adding in the definition and requirements for mobile food vendors. Those fell under peddlers before, and we've had more applications for those and wanted to be clear on what those required.
You guys good? Okay. Moving through the proposed consent agenda. The first is a resolution approving nuisance abatements for various properties. And the second is a resolution approving the purchase of a temporary construction easement for 1211 Patterson Street, pen number 11-32-377-021 for the 2017 Patterson Street Erosion Project. Mr. McGregor.
And item number 3 is also a temporary easement for Patterson. I don't want to jump ahead and do your job for you, but they're $1 temporary easements for the property owners that are adjoining to the Patterson Street project that we discussed last week. It's some clearing and grubbing will have to be handled on that on their property, and then some grading work. And so they understand that, and then they signed off for it's $1, but they did that work that normally we would probably pay them for. So,
You guys have any questions on that?
Nope.
Thank you, sir. Moving right along. Number 4 is a resolution approving professional service agreement with Snyder and Associates for preparation of the ICAAP application. Mr. McGregor. Unbelievable.
This application, or this resolution would approve an agreement with Snyder and Associates for a not to exceed $5,000 budget to prepare the ICAAP, which is Iowa Clean Air Act Attainment Program, which is a program through the Iowa DOT to help reduce emissions. What we're trying to use it for is it's an 80-20% match for a project in the future with Roosevelt, the adaptive signal system. And so in order to prepare that, we need to have emission calculations on how the adaptive system will improve traffic flow through the corridor and the emissions calculations that go with that. And so we don't have any of the expertise to do that. Snyder's and Associates has done several ICAAP grant applications in the past. I think it's worthwhile to award the contract to them to prepare it for us. And the application is due, I believe, October 1st.
What's that cost?
The application?
What's the agreement? Or what are
What's
those?
Snyder
Not to exceed
Associates?
5,000.
5,000.
So roughly that. And the grant application would be for 80% match of an estimated cost of about $1.3 million for Roosevelt.
You guys good?
No, thank you.
Number 5 is a resolution approving economic development assistance contract amendment and targeted jobs withholding tax credit program contract amendment for Silgan Containers Manufacturing Corporation from the Iowa Economic Development Authority. Jim?
Enclosed in your packet is a copy of the resolution. What you'll see is it crosses out the dollar figures for the project that were in the original project award that the state did. It modifies that original capital investment, qualifying investment down from the $121,400,000 down to $102,400,000. It's the only term that I know of in there that changes, isn't it, Jason?
I was not aware of this.
Okay. It's essentially just that their dollar investment amount changed. They need to adjust the contract with the state. We sign off on it because it's this is a pass-through for their job credits. That's based off of the investment. There's no other change. They met all the job creation requirements that were included in the original application. I think it's 120 that was in the application, and they've met that at above the weighted average that was in their original app.
Okay. Do you guys have any questions on that? We good?
Yes.
Okay, brings us to number 6, resolution amending Peddler, Solicitor and Transit Merchant License Fees and adding mobile food vendors fees.
With the update of the code to add mobile food vendors, we wanted to make sure the fees reflected that as well, and then did a review of our fee. These were last updated in January of 2013. So we did look at other communities, particularly West Burlington. They currently charge $250 for an annual permit for mobile food vendors, so we're bringing ours in line with that and making those changes for all those uses. Previously, they were $15, $40, $80, and $200. So this goes to $20, $50, $100, and $250. The fees are have some variation. Again, mobile food vendors are for a time period, not locations. They can submit multiple locations for each application.
Sorry, that beat was really cool. Go ahead.
So that, yeah, again, this brings us in line for the annual permit with exactly what West Burlington is, and then increases our fees that haven't been increased in 5.5 years.
Right on. Questions, council?
That's good.
Okay. We've got 3 hearings set for July 2nd. First is consideration of sale of a property locally known as 209 South Gunnison. Now everybody's coming out for it. I tried to tell you guys a couple weeks ago this was going to make somebody a phenomenal home. Anyways, we're going to sell it on the 2nd. B is consideration of plans and specs for the 2018 Tama Building Permeable Alley. And C is consideration of plans and specs for the 2018 Depot Wide Boxing. On to discussion items. Number 1, pool dome update. Where is it? There they go. Come on down, gentlemen.
So we were asked to give an update of where we stand.
Who's addressing us tonight?
Ryan Ritter, 117 Glendale Drive.
John Freeling, 6093 Madison.
So where we stand with the pool bubble right now is we have currently raised roughly 425,000 of the 600,000 that we're looking to raise. We did not get the CAT grant application. We put in for that, and at the last meeting they decided that it was not a permanent structure, so it does not fit the criteria for it. So long term might be actually easier for us than with it. So we don't have all the stipulations with the CAT grant, so might actually work out better for us. So we are continuing to fundraise, and right now we're just looking to kind of finalize everything, and our plan is still to start work on it this fall.
Swim lessons are up and going and seem to be working fine, so. Questions?
Council? Quest?
How much was the CAT grant? What was it? How much was it going to?
100,000.
And the stipulation was it had to be a permanent structure, and that's why.
Yeah, and at the first meeting, that was one of the first questions, and it was determined at that time that with the footings going in, that it is considered a permanent structure, and then they changed their mind when funding got low. So
I hate that. They're acting like a Libra, huh? Change their mind. That's too bad.
Any other questions, you guys? I can't, what, you guys raised 425,000 of the how much?
600.
You're about there.
You in for a little more?
yeah, you got the
sorry,
175.
My hearing aid
Dig
acts
it.
up on that Monday, so I can't hear about money figures.
Dig your wallet out again.
That's
That's
right.
what they're
You guys are
saying.
doing a good job, man. All right.
Thank
We'll
you.
see what happens.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks.
Thanks, gentlemen. Okay. Number 2, tobacco nicotine-free parks.
Debbie Patterson with ads here.
Are you gonna do the
Nope,
clip?
I'll give you, yep.
Coach is here tonight giving the presentation. All right.
Long time ago, Shane. All right. Yeah, just do. Well, I'm here to talk to you about smoking, which is something that do I need to identify myself first?
Please. Yes, please.
Debbie Patterson, I'm from ADS, Alcohol, Drug, and Dependency Services of Iowa, and you need my address or not?
Sure.
715 Park Place, West Burlington. I just want to play by the rules.
All right.
I'm a stickler.
I appreciate that.
Okay. I'm here to talk to you today about smoking, and you probably are wondering why, but it's still the leading cause of preventable death in the United States. And we now have a problem with our youth, especially because the tobacco industry is really trying to re-normalize smoking. So I've been working with the Parks Department and the hospital, Great River. Our goal is to try to encourage people to be proactive in this endeavor, to try to make our communities safer and healthier and promoting public health. So that's kind of what I'm here for today. And e-cigarettes and hookahs are gaining popularity among our students, and they are in Iowa too. When I talk about e-cigarettes, I'm really talking about electronic smoking devices. That's what we like to call them. So that is really anything but be a vaping device or e-cigarettes, and I'll go into that in a little bit. I have just a real brief presentation. I'll try to go as quickly as I can so I don't take up too much time. But they're a battery-powered device that delivers nicotine in an aerosol form, and they're designed to mimic the experience of smoking cigarettes. That's a constantly evolving market that Big Tobacco has purchased most of the vaping companies, and we have many products that are single-use and disposable, mid products, and you can see the Hello Kitty down on the bottom left that it's obviously appealing to youth. We also have the modified products, which are a little bit larger, a little bit more expensive, that are just, kind of like the classier way to smoke with electronic devices. But by any name, all vapes are the same, and many young people are using them, and there's lots of different names for them. These are some of the surprising vape products. The reason I'm doing slides is mainly just to show you the pictures, because it's quite alarming to see all the different things. If you see
That's a vape thing on
that top left looks just like my kid's asthma medicine. Yeah, and that they can vape nicotine in that, and marijuana and meth and any other drug of choice.
Hold on. You can do other stuff in that, in the things. And
Yep, absolutely. It's quite shocking. Vaping has become popular and it really appeals to the younger audience, and the main reason is curiosity. They're flavored, and they have been marketed as safer products and even as smoking cessation products to help people stop smoking. And they're marketing it that they're just a water vapor, but it is not water vapor. And also there's a way around the law. The Smoke-Free Air Act of 2008 made it illegal to smoke cigarettes, traditional combustible cigarettes, in public places. However, the vaping devices are exempt from those laws because the nicotine that's in these devices is not derived from a tobacco plant. It's a synthetic nicotine. So therefore, there's a loophole around the laws, and the Food and Drug Administration is not able to regulate. They are in the process of trying to do that, but we have to catch up.
Don't you have to be of age to buy this stuff?
Yes, you do, but they can be ordered online, and many youth are ordering them online. You can even get discounts on the products if you have an automatic delivery each month. So you get a 15% discount. So on the internet, our youth is being targeted, and there has been a 1,200% increase in advertising since between 2011 and 2013 for these devices. And 7 in 10 kids are exposed to the ads. We can't advertise traditional cigarettes anymore in magazines or on TV, but these devices are exempt from the laws because they are not derived from the tobacco plant.
Are there any plans to change that?
Yeah, that's why I'm here,
Okay.
is to try to help educate, increase awareness, and we've been working with the park department to try to get our parks in Burlington to be tobacco nicotine free. I've also been talking with Keokuk and Lee County, and there have been some cities in Iowa who have went completely. Story County actually has been very progressive. They started out with a club that was trying to eliminate these products on campus, and it brainstormed into the whole county of Story County in Iowa is completely tobacco nicotine free. You cannot use these devices anywhere. University of Iowa, you can't use them on their campus either. There's some other cities. It's a wave. I'm trying to see that Burlington can maybe lead in something besides gonorrhea.
That was real nice, Deb. Real nice, Deb.
So that's, hey, I'm just being frank about it.
Wow.
You know I am that way.
Look at the boys riding away.
But the North America vaping market is expected to increase 6 times by 2024. And so the big concern here is the policy gap. What we have is we have big tobacco that's spending $1 million per hour on marketing their products to our youth and trying to attract new customers, because they knew that years ago when the Surgeon General from then on, 1964 on, their sales has decreased some. And so what we have is they've come up with a new product to get new customers and to attract lifetime customers, because as we know, e-cigarettes and vaping devices deliver nicotine, which is highly addictive. It's as addictive as heroin and cocaine. E-cigarettes deliver nicotine, and then they also can deliver other drugs, and they are. And I want to get to there's some particularly of interest for our youth, because teens are more susceptible to nicotine addiction. They also have a developing brain until they're 25 years of age, and what we found with nicotine and some other substances, but especially nicotine, that it can disrupt the formation of brain circuits, and that controls our attention, our learning, and our susceptibility to addiction. So not only are these kids going to be addicted to nicotine, they're much more apt to become addicted to other recreational drugs if they try them. We have a big problem with attention and learning, with those types of things in our schools. So, I would venture to say that could be somewhat, from some of these substances. The e-cigarettes are filled with e-juice, and that is started to be regulated in 2016. So we have made a little progress. Because when this first came out, the bottles were not childproof, and they're still not, the labeling laws don't apply to them, but they're starting to regulate the labeling on them. And a lot of the products said nicotine free, but they did, when they tested them in labs, they did have nicotine in them. One of the things about the juice is that it can be harmful if swallowed or absorbed through the skin, and we've seen a big increase in children and pets and even some adults becoming seriously ill. It would take, since we don't know how much nicotine is in the juice, we don't know if 1 drop is too much for kids, we don't know if a teaspoon's too much, but with traditional cigarettes, we know how much nicotine is in them because they're regulated. So that's a concern, of course. There's been a huge increase in poison center calls related to e-cigarettes and e-juices nationally. You can see that from that graph. We've had an 800% increase in those. E-cigarettes do not emit just harmless water vapor. It is a chemical vapor, and anything that we inhale into our lungs reaches our brain in less than 10 seconds. And that means that lots of times and anything that we inhale into our lungs besides pure oxygen and healthy, room air can be detrimental to our lungs.
Right on.
And we know that. So when some of the arguments are that, some of the ingredients in these are safe to eat, and that is true, but we don't know the long-term effects of inhaling these substances or these chemicals.
So Deb, when you say e-juice, is that last slide, that was that combination of all that stuff.
They look like little eyedroppers, and they can be bought anywhere in Burlington at the vaping stores or gas stations and whatnot, or ordered online. And you know, we have actually, you know, 21, person has to be 21 to purchase alcohol, but we know that kids get it when they're less than 21. So we know that kids are getting this, and we see, you know, there's lots of kids that are doing this. So that's why we're trying to promote this for our parks, because we'd like to promote a healthy culture and have, instead of normalizing smoking in our city parks, we would like to be proactive and try to have a culture in Burlington that is role modeling health and good decisions. There's a concern about these inhaling the vapors, that it causes lung irritation. We're more susceptible to lung infections in the presence of cancer-causing chemicals. We've actually found that sometimes there's actually, there's a thing called popcorn lung. That's where there's a chemical that was used in manufacturing plants where they make popcorn, and it's safe to eat, but they found all the workers come down with this disease, this bronchiolitis obliterans, but it's popcorn lung is what we like to call it. It's much easier to say. So that's an example, and they've tested a lot of the juices, and this is in a lot of them. So there's one example where they claimed that it was safe, but it wasn't. It's not approved as a cessation device by the Food and Drug Administration. The jury is still out on that. Really, what most people end up doing is if they're trying to stop smoking, they use them and they become addicted to nicotine even greater, so they have dual use. This is the one that's the real amazing one. Can you spot the vaping device in this picture?
Yeah, the one on the top.
The flash?
All of them? They all of them.
That one?
That one, that's the vaping device. See it charging on the computer?
Oh my gosh.
What we have, those are called Juuls. And we have kids in middle school and high schools across the United States, and we are, you know, doing that too in Iowa. They're available everywhere. I was at Taco Bell. I don't go there very often, but I was walking in and I saw a box. It's the first time I actually saw a box of one of these things, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's some litter right there, and it's a Juul, the pod, the pack. But you can see that that's the one that's really still in the market, and the nicotine in one Juul pod is the same as 20 cigarettes.
What?
Yep. So one charge per pod is about, so one Juul pod, the little refillers for the thing, it's the equivalent to a pack of cigarettes. Not one hit, just one pod. And here's, okay, so there's the Juul. You see how she can disguise it? And the little pods that you put inside the Juul with the nicotine delivery is even smaller. So that's what they look like, the little colorful things. And they're in fruity flavors, cream brulee, Skittles, gummy worms, gummy bears flavors, and they say they're not trying to appeal to youth. So that's our call to action, and that's one of the things that I do under my work as a prevention specialist at ADS, is that we're trying to educate the consumers, we're trying to educate our communities, and so that people will be proactive in this, so that we can try to help make it healthier for our youth and prevent addiction. The policy that we are, you know, like I said, the e-cigarettes are exempt from the Smoke-Free Air Act. So what we're proposing, and I did bring some, I don't know if I can give handouts to them, but I do have some handouts.
Yeah.
That shows you that the laws that would be, and I've talked with, no, I should have talked, but I'm not up by that.
So you have to go to Mars to have a cigarette.
I'm bored of it. I've talked with the people in Story County, and I actually called the police department and talked with the Ames Police Department commander, and they haven't had any problems with or any pushback from their community. They have a community, I guess, that was very supportive of doing this in the first place. But what it's basically doing is so that when we go to our parks with our families, we don't have to have people vaping and smoking next to us. And I know.
I don't know who that is.
Thank you, Shane.
Somebody should be ashamed of themselves. Unbelievable.
So right now, people can use these devices walking up and down Jefferson Street or, you know, in the parks and whatnot. And so what we're proposing is just in the parks. And that would be with the exception of the Flint Hills golf course. So if you have any questions about the policies or
I just want to say,
other communities.
I appreciate what you're doing. I understand totally what you're trying to go after. I'm just wondering how do you make a park that's outside smoke free? You know, who's going to? What are we going to get phone calls on the weekends? You know, to have somebody arrested for smoking out there? You know, I mean. I'm just saying, how do you regulate that? You know, unless you've got a community that is 100% behind it, I don't understand how that works. I can't. We've got a problem with people renting the park and forgetting that you're not supposed to drive on the grass. You know what I mean? And that just causes more problems. Right. You know what I'm saying? That's where I am. And my only other thing is that I try not to overstep. And I'm a habitual line stepper, but I try not to do that, and I just don't think that you can legislate good. And I think there's a fine line that you walk with that. Yeah, I'm not into legislating outside. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I just think that parents just need to start getting after their kids a little bit more. But I totally agree with what you're saying, though. I just want that perfectly clear. But I don't.
Do you want me to respond to that concern, or because I do have an answer?
Please do. Please do.
Actually, it would be similar to open container law. If we can't walk, like if I go to Steamboat Days Friday night, I can't walk down the street with an open bottle of beer, so it's the same type of enforcement where we're self-policed sort of. You know, just like the Smoke Free Air Act, if we see someone smoking in a public place, we're supposed to ask them nicely to please extinguish that or stop smoking. This is smoke free. So if it was in the park and someone was vaping and I was there with my, you know, family or something, I could say, could you please stop doing that? This is a nicotine-free park. And if they would resist, then of course, then we might have to call, you know, for help. But it's basically more of a, workplaces are doing this. They're changing their policies and having nicotine-free policies. Communities are changing. And so it's just, for right now, it's individual communities that are doing these changes. But that's what as far as enforcement, it would be like an open container enforcement type issue.
I'm with you on that, and you know what, I appreciate your effort, but until it's illegal inside, and until you can get the smoking out of the casino, I don't see how we can make a park smoke-free. I just don't. I wish it would be so, but until that is done in Iowa, I don't see where we have an option.
Okay.
Well, it started out as, I remember before I turned 18, we could smoke in public places, in restaurants, things like that. And now that's banned.
So, it went to smoking section and none.
When I went to school, they could smoke at school and in the hallways of hospitals.
Right. So, I don't know.
What?
Yeah,
so I'm
that old.
I just think that as far as, you know, our parks and things like that, they are public places, and I think it should be the same as other public places where you cannot smoke.
I agree, but it does come back to enforcement. So the big question that should actually be for the police chief is kind of enforcement issues. Do you see any enforcement issues with this?
Right now, the smoking is enforced by the health department.
Right. That's what the handout that I'm giving you, they're the ones that are the enforcers right now. What they say in Story County, what the Ames Police Department said is typically if someone if an officer would be called, they would just come and they would just talk to them and educate them on the law and, you know, try to do some intervention as far as explaining to them their health. And then they would go ahead and
So
they
the-
wouldn't issue a citation. per
The,
se.
the health department is the enforcement.
The Iowa Department of
Okay.
Public Health.
And if we did this,
That's
this would
what's in
remain the
these.
same, correct? All right.
Pardon?
This would be the same if we did this?
No.
Right.
It would be an individual policy, so it would be a little bit different, but that would be the person that, if there were complaints, that they would be referred to.
The health department? Right.
You can each take one, and then I need some back, some talk to the board.
I think a deal like this, that ends up in the city's lap because it's gonna cause confusion.
That was my comment. I am all for healthifying Burlington. I am all for being a leader. My concern is, I don't want to overburden the police department with everyone calling in, but you said there wasn't a lot of pushback in Story City when they did it, or Story County?
And Iowa City, at the campus, they have this rule too. And
Dennis,
there's other cities in Iowa.
Dennis, do you get many calls right now? Issues with smoking in the parks or?
Not smoking in the parks, no, just on basically city property or, a public place where it's posted. We get an occasional call, not a lot.
My grandson plays baseball, so I've been going out to catch as many baseball games as I possibly can, so I drive past the park. And people are playing disc golf and all kinds of stuff with cigarettes hanging out. They're letting it all hang out. Not everybody's doing it, but they are. And my only thought is, again, you say, well, it's self-regulation, but this is something that people aren't used to, and it's one thing to say, well, hey, you shouldn't be drinking out in public. It's another thing to walk up to somebody and say, hey, put that cigarette out, and then we've got fighting and we've got drama out to the park, an extra added police officer duty time because of cigarettes on top of everything else that we've got, and we've got a staff that isn't up to par, so.
Yeah. One thing that I didn't address in my presentation that I should have probably is the secondhand smoke and secondhand vape and the cancer-causing chemicals. And just because they're outside doesn't mean that they're not exposing person that's not smoking, and that is where it's totally different than alcohol. So, the open container thing, I should say, is that's similar to that. However, an open container isn't exposing me to substances.
Part of it is also what kind of message do we want to send to the community? So I'm fine with having this eliminated from city parks, as long as it's not putting any more of a burden on the Burlington Police Department. And if it's being enforced by the health department, then it doesn't sound like it is. So
I think it's overstepping, so I can't be part of that. Anybody else got anything on that one?
I don't know what the next step would be. Would we have some, to put it to a vote kind of thing?
Is that what you want?
At least two.
I think that's what's been asked of us.
There's at least two people.
Is there three that want to make the park non-smoking? You two are in on that?
Yes.
Here's the deal, and for me, until it's illegal inside and until it's illegal in the casino, and I think it becomes, okay, person goes, well, I can do it here, but I can't do it there. That's a problem for me.
Well,
I think that's
It's gonna cause us problems.
First of all, the smoking in itself, cigarette smoking, that is illegal in everywhere except a casino. That's what I'm saying is, why can't we have this as the next step? Is to making our public places where people are expecting to want to enjoy themselves outside. Why should we?
Do you view them the same? I do. I view vaping and smoking
I
the
do
same.
too.
I understand, and then if that's your answer, then I would say that there shouldn't be any differentiation there.
Right.
So if to me, I consider them both to be the same. I understand they're different. I used
But
to be
you
a
can-
smoker.
you
I
can-
quit
you can
because of
smoke-
the side effect or
You
the
can
effects of
smoke
it, but-
outside of a restaurant as long as they don't serve you food, but if you bring your own food, you can serve. I think it's way too complicated. I applaud the efforts, but I think they really need to go back to the state level.
And I think eventually the state's probably going to pick it up, and it's going to be a moot point. But at the end of the day, we can still send the message that it's not something we'd like to see in our park.
I understand about to send the message, but at the same time, at what cost do we send the message? We're going to be, think about this, we're going to be using our police officers who are really not up to staff, as according to the chief, we're going to be using our police officers, because it will happen, make no mistake about it, out to the park for cigarette complaints, for people arguing and possibly fighting over cigarette complaints.
We can already have that problem, though.
What's that?
We already could potentially have that problem.
No, because you can smoke.
Shane, that was my initial concern too, but when we heard Deb speak and when we heard the chief speak, it sounded like that's not forecasted to be a big issue.
I'm out.
Eric?
Maybe Debbie could explain that more. The current law as far as smoking at like fields or where there's seating versus just the open area. I don't believe you could.
It has to be in an open area. It can't be in a, from my understanding, it can't be a shelter house that has walls. So I think our shelters in like Crapo Park, I think they're all open air. So, but it isn't legal to smoke marijuana in our parks or vape marijuana. And that's the thing that's difficult about these vaping devices, is that it's very difficult to tell if you see one of those, how do you know if it's nicotine in it and other chemicals or if it's marijuana? So that's, they have done, in Keokuk at the Little League Park, they did go nicotine free. They've done that because they, you know, just didn't think it was good to have that around the kids.
Let's go ahead and put this to bed. Are we with?
Traditional smoking, are you allowed to do that in the
Oh,
stands?
yes, in the parks.
That's too bad.
Were you wanting to have that eliminated too?
Yes, I was one of those moms that was sitting in those stands in Keokuk, and it got really bad. You had to leave watching the game. It was so thick. Yeah, I think it's a progressive thing for our city to consider.
To move it forward, I think that someone would have to see what a model ordinance would look like that did that, and it would you'd have to go through, we'd want Patrick to take a look at that, and we'd also want to see how that's set up for, would be set up for enforcement of that, and then have some discussion about are the entities that would be doing that enforcement, where are they at on being able to do anything with that?
For me, that's key, because I don't want to put any more pressure on the department as it is right now, so.
We're good?
Yep.
Okay.
You'll work with.
Yeah, we'll work with Debbie and we'll work with our attorney and other departments, and then once we have something, bring it forward for consideration.
Sounds good. I disagree with your suggestion, but you're a winner, my friend. I appreciate you coming down with that. Thank you. What's your name? The gentleman that's with you? That's right. That's right. Good to see you, my friend. Okay, number 3 is a CISA use agreement at Recplex.
Hi there, my name is Doug Ziegler, 2534 Cliff Road. I'm president of CISA, or the Southeast Soccer Academy. Got a couple of handouts here for you guys. So we just want to take an opportunity to talk with you guys. I'll give a quick introduction to who CISA is and then talk to you kind of why we're here. Southeast Soccer Academy, we are the local sports organization that manages and operates all youth soccer activities in Burlington, and the majority of them in Southeast Iowa. You can kind of read our mission and statement. Basically, we're here to grow soccer in Southeast Iowa. Currently what we do, we have several partnerships with local organizations, local towns to manage their soccer operations. For instance, here in Burlington, we partner with the YMCA and we run the youth rec leagues. We hold them at the Recplex, but we operate them jointly with the Burlington YMCA. There's over 900 players that we service both in the fall and the spring. We also currently partner with Fort Madison YMCA as well and do the same thing. We provide some consulting down there and provide some coaching. They have a total of 550 players. We also partner again with the YMCA for the indoor soccer leagues that are held here in Burlington. And we just recently partnered with Mount Pleasant Soccer Association to help run and organize their youth activities in Mount Pleasant. So the next page kind of shows a picture of the Recplex in 2005. Why we're here today is to talk about a use agreement, a long-term use agreement to practice at the Burlington Recplex. We currently hold a majority of our events out there. We pay field rental, so on and so forth for these events. We hold several tournaments. And if you look at your map of the Recplex in 2005, you'll see to the left hand of your page there, kind of 3 faded rectangles there. That area there is where we currently hold practices for several of our teams. And that's where we're here to talk to you guys about getting a long-term use agreement to continue holding practices in those areas. Like I said, in 2005, you can see basically that's a non-irrigated area. It was just there. The Recplex wasn't even really using that area. Just recently, we've had conversations with Eric and with Kirk Danforth about continued use of this area for our organization. We've had some discussions about a length of a contract. We've discussed 3 years, but it's our understanding for anything of longer than 3 years, it needs to come to the city council. We're looking for a long-term agreement, basically a 10-year agreement. So we as an organization can continue to plan and grow as we have over the last decade and partner with the Recplex to continue to grow not only soccer in Southeast Iowa, but continue to help the Recplex develop. So I'm just going to go through a few things to show you guys kind of the economic impact of what our organization does for the Recplex and for Burlington in general. So besides the leagues that we hold that we mentioned previously, we hold 2 tournaments each year. One is the Burlington Monster Match. We've been holding that since 2009, I believe. 2009. The last year we had 151 teams. We brought in 7,500 people to the city of Burlington that weekend that play or are visitors or spectators for that tournament. The economic impact was $2.2 million for the city of Burlington for that one weekend for the event that we hold. Just to give you guys some idea about this soccer tournament and the next one we'll talk about, we are the organization affiliated with the Iowa Soccer Association, which is the governing body of soccer in Iowa, which is also part of the U.S. Soccer Association, which is the governing body of soccer in the United States. So we are the only organization that is capable of holding this event in Burlington because we have that affiliation. So the teams that come to this event are affiliated with their state organizations.
You guys are connected?
Yes, we are connected. So we're just trying to show a little bit of what we try and do to help the community by holding this event. The next tournament, or the next page, you'll see what we actually pay, the economic impact of what the Recplex brings in itself. Now, 2016 and 2017 were very similar. The gate revenue of spectators coming in was close to $6,000 in 2016. 2017 was roughly $6,800. Concessions varies from year to year, from $12,000 to $15,000 a weekend. And then we also pay field rental, which is roughly $4,200 a year. So, you know, we vary from $23,000 to $25,000 just for that one weekend that the Recplex generates in revenue. Recently, we met with Chamber of Commerce, Jason Hutchinson. We met with Gary Hoyer with the hotels, and there's been a lot of discussion about trying to increase hotel revenue in Burlington to bring people to Burlington. As a direct result of those discussions with those guys, we decided this year to hold a second tournament in the spring, and that was just last month. It was a great success for a first-year tournament. We had, at that point, 73 teams. Once again, the projected revenue from that, the economic impact to the city of Burlington is $1.1 million for the 3,800 spectators and players that came to the city of Burlington.
That was a nice one for the first.
It was, so the Monster Match, when we held that the first year, we had 71 teams the first year. We had 151 this past year. We definitely expect to see that same kind of growth, and we anticipate in the next several years to be up to 151 teams, hopefully.
When did soccer start exploding again?
To be frank, in the city of Burlington, I'd say in 2008. So before 2008, there was called the Burlington Area Soccer Club. And that organization held a rec league out the Recplex. The YMCA also held their own rec league. That was, in my opinion at the time, very detrimental to soccer to have two organizations competing with each other. So we as an organization, then the Burlington Area Soccer Club, went with the YMCA, presented to them, a partnership agreement to share the program, so we shared resources to get everybody under one organization, and also to provide the proper coaching that was required to grow the sport and create a passion for soccer. We did that, and that was very successful. Around that same time, we started expanding what we call our select program, or as many people say, traveling soccer, like traveling baseball, traveling softball. That was very successful. Currently, we have over 200 players that do that, 16 teams. And that, we had those teams going, and we were traveling all over the state. I mean, we're always going to Muscatine, Cedar Rapids, all this stuff. And we said, you know what? We have to bring people to Burlington. We are tired of traveling. We have this beautiful complex out here that we need to use. So we, through a bunch of volunteers, held this first tournament. And because we did above and beyond what other tournaments did, for instance, we go out there, we decorate it, we do a lot of things above and beyond what other tournaments do, right? It's exploded. So that allowed us, and I know this is a long story here, but the revenue we generated from that tournament allowed us to hire professional coaching, professional staff. So we have a full-time director of coaches, Chris here, and a full-time director of operations, Ray Ott. That, gentlemen. Yep. So they run our operations full-time. Once we're able to take that next step, you know, it's allowed soccer just grow and develop and have a proper organization that can be successful and provide the proper training to the kids. So that's kind of the progress that we've had. And the Recplex has been a big part of that. There's no question about it. You know, for us to have the success we have had, we've had to do a lot of investment in the Recplex. So I showed you that map earlier of the 3 fields that we're on. You can see that was a dry year in 2005. That was basically a dirt patch. I mean, so as we had the Y program come out, we held more events out at the Recplex. I personally went to Kirk at one point and said, hey, we don't want to be inside your facility practicing because it damages beautiful fields. You have this area up here to the south that nobody's using. Can you just mow it and we'll go up there and start practicing? They did that. We went up there. We put all of our practices up there. And we've been doing that since that time. We've kind of had this standing agreement that we go practice up there. They mow it, so on and so forth. So after we held a monster match for the first 2 years, we had a dry year. Those fields, we held games up there because we're so big. We had to grow. Those tournaments, those fields were in horrible condition. So we went out and we raised, I think it was $16,000 to put in irrigation up there. We donated the material to the Recplex and they installed an irrigation system up there. So those fields could be playable for years to come. We also, a couple years later, because of how we're growing, once again, we did not want our teams to be in the Recplex, in the actual fenced-in area. So in the fall, we had so many teams and kids that sunlight was basically ending our practices early. So we, again, on our own, invested I think it was over $20,000 in lights to put in those fields that we're talking to the south.
Right on.
So in the last 9-10 years, we've invested $37,000 in the Recplex and asked nothing in return. On top of that, all the goals that you see out there at the Recplex, all the equipment we've purchased. Our first organization donated the original ones when the Recplex opened. Since 2009, we've also invested another $28,000 in equipment that the Recplex uses not only for us, but for other events that they hold. And then on top of that, field rental, we paid $78,000.
Hey, we got you.
So long and short, what we're here today is to talk to you guys. We completely understand that the Recplex is under budget constraints. We know they want to be profitable. We want them to be profitable. We are vested in them. But we are looking for a long-term use agreement, basically to almost stay status quo from where we are now for 10 more years, knowing that we've invested this time and money into the Recplex, knowing that we'll continue to do that, but still have that use of those back fields for our teams to practice on basically Monday through Thursday, you know, 3 months in the spring, 3 months in the fall. And we understand that if we have any agreement over 3 years, it needs to come to the city council. So we want to at least start a dialogue with you guys about a long-term agreement.
Let me ask you this, why 10 years? That's a long time. A lot can change in 10 years.
Exactly. You may not be here. You may not be here.
Oh, I won't.
He may not be here, exactly. So we're concerned about is we want to be here. We are a nonprofit organization, and if you look at our fees that we charge to do our programs, we are half of what, and less than half of what people in Iowa City, Cedar Rapids are doing, and we are providing the same services they are. We know the economic stature, or the demographics of Burlington is not the same as a lot of those cities, and we don't want soccer to be you can only play if you can afford it, right? So we keep our fees as low as humanly possible. And if we have to go out next year and pay field rental, and then next year pay an increase and more on and so forth, we have to continue to increase our fees. That impacts what our costs are, that impacts how many kids play, and why we want tenure is because we know the staff here, you guys may not be here in 10 years, Kirk will not be here in 10 years, I'm assuming. We want to be here in 10 years, and we want some consistency from year to year to budget, knowing what our costs are going to be in the future, because we've hired 2 full-time staff. We want to continue to grow. We want to continue to bring events to Burlington. To do that, though, we have to have a financial model that we can project from year to year.
So you don't just want priority over the next 10 years. You want to lock in these rates over the next 10 years.
Yes.
Hey, Kirk, does if you don't mind, a couple questions for you. If these fields are locked up, and somebody else wants to come out there and play soccer, are they going to not be allowed to do that? If I remember correctly, there's other space out there for them to be able to.
Yeah, currently they've got the field scheduled from.
Hey, can you come up here, Jeff?
Currently, they have the field scheduled 11 weeks in the spring and 11 weeks in the fall on Monday through Thursday from approximately 5 o'clock until 8:30.
That's just the backfields, right?
The backfields. That's what Doug's talking about.
Right, but my question is let's say me and some friends want to come out and play soccer and we pay our gate fees and get in. There's still a field available to us during this time, right?
Not if it's not scheduled. We don't allow any just drop-in usage.
Okay, all right.
It's got to be scheduled.
I'm good with it. I appreciate everything that you guys have done. I think that's fantastic, the commitment that you guys are making. You got me when you said, hey, I want everybody to play, keep the prices low. That was a smooth move, my friend.
Thank you.
That was nice. Yeah, I
got no problem with the 10-year agreement. You guys have done an excellent job. My one concern would be there should be somewhere a review of costs, maybe like year 5, something like that, to make up. Everybody has inflation adjustments, chemicals go up, that kind of thing. I think we have to protect the city somewhat on that, and I don't think it has to be exorbitant, but I think we have to be able to look at it, to adjust it, because 10 years is a long time.
It's a long time.
I definitely see the investment you've made in the facility as well, but I think we would need to have some wording there that we could review that. So that's just my.
I think that's responsible, but we could have wording that everybody's happy with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think just a review of the costs. I don't have a problem with you having the priority for 10 years. Just a 5-year review on the fees, I think, is appropriate.
Yeah,
So-
and we could, something like that, we could cap to the inflation rate or something. But we have to provide some protection.
Just put a percentage on it. I don't know what.
And currently, right now, we're not paying anything.
Right.
Well, we're not in practice. We pay for light usage out there.
Just for your tournaments and stuff.
We pay field rental for anything we hold for any events. And so what we're talking about is basically just for the practices for our teams, that we're basically not continuing to have any cost for that duration. And we continue to want to partner with the city of Burlington and continue to hold events out there.
I got that.
We like partners like you guys.
I am in awe. I am in awe when I look at the numbers here on what the Monster Mash, the revenue that it generates. That is phenomenal. And I have been out to the Monster Mash myself. If you've never been out there, you guys do a bang-up job on that. I mean, they decorate. There's Halloween costumes. There's prizes. I mean, you guys really go
And just
go
to add
all
to that,
out.
the one we just held this past spring, the Midnight Cup, we played games under the lights. I mean, we spent $3,500 in fireworks. We had a fireworks show out there once the sun went down at 9 o'clock, because for us, you see any event you go to can get tiring, right? And oh, we went to this softball tournament, this baseball tournament, let's try something different. We try and go above and beyond like that to make sure we have people come back and make it something they remember.
The council likes to be notified when there's going to be fireworks so that we can just go out and make sure everything goes well.
We can do
that.
Thanks, Doug. You guys are doing an awesome job.
So I guess what would be the...
So just to clarify, the agreement they're requesting is 10 years for no fee.
But that's for the practice fields.
For the practice fields, yeah. What staff had presented had a fee. We do charge for a light cost for that, but we do charge other entities for practice out there as well, just so you're aware. Want to make sure everyone's aware SEC practices and plays out there, and they get charged annually. And any baseball team that comes out to fields get charges, but different dynamics for everything. So, so an agreement would be, I guess, a 10-year agreement for use of those fields on a priority basis, Monday through Thursday, with just light cost. Is that what you guys are?
Yeah, that was,
say
I think
that's
that was
what
in the
we're-
paperwork.
I would say it's worth, but with the, I don't know how you want to word that for the 5-year.
Review or
You'll just have to figure out
revisit.
what the maximum limit for the,
In 5 years, you're saying after
that
5
5
years,
years
is the
gonna be,
cost
if we're gonna
increase?
cap that, if we're gonna cap
Yeah,
that.
That would
we-
increase for...
What's the cost though if they're paying? What's the review on cost? I don't know. I'm not following what
Well, I
you
think
want.
the review would be on the cost for the fees associated with the events.
That's a totally separate fee than their.
I wasn't talking that, I was talking.
Laid out there.
We're just talking practice here. The
Yeah.
event fees are a fee that gets charged any tournament that comes in.
Oh, okay, all right,
Yeah.
well, then it's a mute point.
Well, and
Well,
quite
we're
honestly,
taking care of the field.
Yeah.
That's where
That's,
Yeah, but they're not paying for that now, they're only paying for the lights.
Right, no, I'm saying, I thought that's what we were addressing, is that the costs go up for maintenance of the field.
Part of why this has come here is because the CISA has been working with Eric and them to come to a proposed lease fee. Eric, what did you propose for a lease cost?
Well, originally we had talked about a $10 per hour per field, field rental, and then came back based on that, having just a set annual fee of $3,500 a year and increasing $500 annually.
What did you base that off of?
Looking at cost, that would include irrigation, water costs, and lighting costs, so it wouldn't be a separate lighting fee. Our fertilizer and seeding and extra staff time back there, trying to factor that all in. They use the fields 95% of the time.
They're the majority of the use of the fields. So how much does it cost for you to maintain those fields?
I think just supplies and labor, extra labor. I mean, if we're mowing them anyway, extra labor costs just associated with that. And then light cost, it was,
So supplies is about 2,000.
yeah.
Labor is 600.
And light cost about $850 a year.
So $850 for lights, and the water varies depending on how much is used. So you've got fixed cost in there of $2,800, $3,400, $3,500 to maintain fields that they're the ones that use and for the majority of the year.
That includes water?
That does not include water. Water is on top of that.
That's gonna be the big.
And that's what we're trying to, when staff was putting in a figure of 3,500 as a start and then stair-stepping that up over 10 years, part of what they're looking at is what are our base costs to maintain these fields when these are, I mean, we do recognize the amount of capital that's been put into it from the association, but these are the costs that we have for ongoing maintenance of the facility. And then how does this compare with what you charge for practice with SEC or some of the other
Kirk
teams?
could explain that a little bit more. They're $6,500, but they have some internal use inside the gated area.
That $6,000 to $6,500 in that range, and that will be both inside the complex and outside on those fields. More inside than out because they've got the fields scheduled out back on the south fields. And then that also includes, they'll be playing some games out there as well.
So you're making stating as a council that you're willing to let them have the rental for nothing on a facility that's cost, right now, this year we're putting $70,000 out of hotel motel to subsidize operations, and that next year we have it going to $110,000, and we may be too high on that, but based off of how things have gone, that very well could be the number that really needs to be the ongoing number that we're using to subsidize for the general operations. And that's notwithstanding the money that Monster Match puts in, because that is a good revenue during the course of the year, but it just doesn't offset our fixed costs for operating the facility, unfortunately.
Well,
Even the revenue
what is
from
there-
the hotel motel?
We're cutting the grass already, right? We've got to cut that field, and whether somebody's playing on it or not, we're not just going to let it grow wild.
Sure.
So I'm just trying to get a handle on what could be a fix.
And I know
get
you
it.
put a lot into it, 16,000 to irrigate and then 20,000 for the lights, a total of 37,000. Are you proposing continuing improvements or?
Yeah, he did $20,000.
Yeah, we don't have a problem. We you know, some of the initial discussion we had is we commit to putting $20,000 more into capital improvements and Recplex over the next 10 years.
Well, so can we not come up with what we think the rental fee is and then give you a credit for that capital work? Is there a reason why we can't do that? I mean, it's a little bit of a cost accounting, but I mean, if they're investing in our facility, but by the same token, that would give us a way to kind of keep track of that, because there should be some type of rental fee. I didn't get that from this
I was gonna say-
material that was presented.
Or can we come up with a fee that is suitable for both parties, paying a fee so that we're still covering the city, but we're not putting a burden, and we're recognizing the sacrifice that you guys made, and maybe putting that fee on setting up that fee on I'm not.
So can I add to this then? So let's look at this. So some of this is once again, when you want to have a partnership, you don't want to cut off your nose and spike your face, right? We didn't make hardly any money on the last tournament we ran this spring. We did that because Chamber of Commerce wanted a new event, and the hotel revenue, right? Tax, they want another event, the people to fill their hotel rooms. When we hold tournaments, there's not a single hotel room within 40 to 50 miles of Burlington that is not booked. When they call us up, we're sending them to Muscatine, Mount Pleasant's book, Monmouth's book, Fort Madison's book. Okay, so that's the economic impact. So we're talking about $3,500 to mow that field, right? We just brought the Recplex almost 10 grand in one weekend in one event. So here I am saying, we're trying to create a partnership with the Recplex, and here we are having a discussion about $3,500 of field rental to mow fields that are already there, that are holding other events on those back fields because we've put in the irrigation system in there. You know, there's other tournaments that play back there that we are not involved in that would not be able to hold games back there if we did not do that initial investment. So I understand the budget concerns, and I understand what we're saying about how it looks on paper, but I think we also have to understand that without us, none of this happens. And if we can't keep our teams and fees affordable, we don't hold two tournaments that brings over $3 million to the city of Burlington and brings in $50,000 a year to the Recplex. And on top of that, we have a program with the YMCA where we brought all the games from the YMCA to the Recplex. How much concessions are sold there, and what is the gate fee to bring 900 kids through that gate 8 weekends in the spring and 8 weekends in the fall? I guess it's 7 in the spring, 7 in the fall now. We don't have to do that.
We're not bickering back and forth. We're just trying to come to a solution.
I agree.
That's what we're trying
to do. But I
do.
want everybody to see the big picture here.
All right.
I get it, Doug. I'm not sure some of the citizens get it. I'm really tired of them calling it the Rectplex and trying to explain we got to mow lawn and we got to irrigate lawn, and so I understand where you're coming from. I'm not sure the citizens do.
I mean, Doug, if you're, I mean, you said you guys are planning on spending $20,000 over the next 10 years. To me, that's a $2,000 annual commitment.
And if we're going to look at it, the challenge is this.
The organization's proved itself.
Right.
So
the challenge is this, Matt. We think we need to put more lights on another field to bring more events, to bring more teams here to grow these events, right? So we can give the city of Burlington $2,000, but that doesn't get us lights on another field.
Right.
So that's why we're sitting here going, we can commit to light another field out there so we can bring more teams to play later in the night, especially since we have a night tournament now. But if we pay $2,000 a year, there's no guarantee that that happens.
I mean, for me, guys, it's $3,500 a year is an investment into something that has a return. So
You've been a good partner, man. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I've been a good
I
partner.
agree.
I'd like to see something. I would. personally, even though with that commitment, I still like, just because there's a fee, and that would be setting up precedent, sort of, you know, but,
you could,
I will say, let's stick it to our 5-year mark and see what those numbers look. I mean, I know you guys don't like the idea of a 5-year reassessment on the fees, but we have to be able to protect the city.
So are you saying a fee on top of the $20,000 capital improvement, or is that capital improvement the investment that we're making?
No, I think it needs to be taken into consideration at that time.
What, you mean the 5-year mark? Is that what you're talking?
Yeah. Whatever investment they've made into the fields.
Well, for right now, are you guys, let's talk for right now for that first 5. Are you guys okay with no fee?
I'm fine with it.
Yes.
Peanut butter?
Something in writing that says, per our mutual agreement, we agree to put X amount into lighting or irrigation or whatever.
Yeah, we're committed to do that.
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
then I think we're covered there.
We're committed to do 20,000
Then
over
we
10
have
years.
something to stand on to tell the citizens when they say, how
And to
come
be
they
honest
get
with
to
you,
walk
that's
in.
probably gonna happen faster than in 10 years. It's just, that's the term of the agreement.
Just for the record, I used to play soccer with goalie, 2nd grade, so.
All right.
You're good.
You know, I don't know if I should even vote on that side, you know. All right, so, okay, I'm into. With a 5-year, rehash it out with whoever's sitting up here and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I like, you know, that's why I was saying that with your investment, you know, it's in one pocket out the other, so I mean.
So if we spend the 20,000 within the 5 years, can we also have it written in there that this extends automatically for the next 5 years?
I can't say that.
Why? Well, we're having a discussion, right?
Hey, we're just
We're having a discussion on
We're
that.
just
We're
talking
talking about 20,000 over 10 years. Just basically having a lease and extending it if you meet the terms, right? So we meet the terms within 5 years, and that automatically renews for the next 5 years at no.
I'd have to have some time to think about that one.
Okay.
Okay, I mean, we're not gonna make a snap decision in
Yep.
15, 20 minutes.
But you're doing it, kid. You're doing it, kid.
All right.
You got the pros. That guy on the left, he's been flexing the whole time. I caught that.
I would say I'm intrigued by that. The only cause for concern I would have is if there was any significant costs associated with the repair or the maintenance of that field outside of the 35.
Well, I believe it's written in the preliminary agreement that we had that any damage that we did out there, we're responsible for. So if we're out there and some part of our organization comes out and drives their car on the grass, you know, and it's identified with us, we're responsible to take care of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Doug.
Yep.
That conversation wasn't so bad. Okay. Number 4, Cascade Bridge funding. Mr. McGregor.
Good evening again.
Hi, Nick.
We received a letter from the Iowa DOT that they call it the South Main Street Over Drainage, which is the Cascade Bridge, is eligible for the city, what's it called? The state city bridge funds up to $1.5 million. We need to tell them yes or no by June 25th whether or not we will receive the funds. And order or after, if we were to say yes, we would have to have a contractual letting within 3 years of October 1st, 2018. So October 1st, 2021 would be the date that we'd have to have it, a contract signed.
For work to start when?
As long as you have a contract signed, it would, by 2021, it would, your work could happen the next summer. So cost estimates on that bridge, I left it on my phone, for concrete was $6 to $7 million. And then for a steel structure was between $8 and $9 million. So after talking about it with Jim, I don't know where the rest of your funds are coming from to do the remaining amount. As I think Travis with Piper Jaffray did cost outlays on when we could afford it, and it was 2024. Well, those timetables don't line up with what this grant funding is in front of us. We have been eligible for this grant funding in the past. 2012, we turned down the funds. It was a little bit more of a dire straight year. We don't necessarily have the funds to be able to complete this. So I guess it's not a decision-making process right now, but my recommendation would be that we would turn these funds down.
How much was the grant again?
1.5 million.
1.5.
So by turning it down, we don't throw it away. We're still on the list to receive that funds. And this was 4 years ago that we received this same offer. And so they base it off of bridges that are of deterioration level, certain age. And so we would still remain on that list if we were to turn it down.
Is that money on total reconstruction, or is that money for?
Reconstruction.
What was going to be the cost to rehab it?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think it was $2 to $3 million, but
I haven't seen that in a long time.
I haven't seen that estimate for a number. And that was done in 2012 for the rehab. The full replacement was 2009, and so we use inflation to base off what that number is today. And so it's hard to really understand if that price is what inflationary rates. It's a standard inflationary rate for engineering projects, but it's hard to know if that's a true estimate without having it going out and redone again.
The only thing I remember from that time frame with when we looked at a rehab, the cost was I think within 500,000 or something like that, maybe that much lower. But the life cycle costs were more expensive on a rehab because it will be in a position where it needs to be rehabbed or replaced at a much sooner time frame than if you go through and put a new bridge in. And the weight loading was a lot less. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it might be you could have preferences one way or another, but long term that route was more expensive, even if on the front end you could get it cheaper. And it has been 6 years since
that was.
Is there anything that can be moved around in the CIP in order to meet this timeline?
It's a whole lot of moving around.
It is, but I gotta ask the question.
Right on.
You wouldn't do any street projects for the next 4 years. If you tried to do the CIP the way it currently is, and do this as well, you would hit debt usage of 73% in FY20, 71% in FY21. We have a cap of 70%. Mm-hmm. You would make no principal payments on the bridge for the first 2 years. You can do it though. Trying to make a comparison between that or waiting for a consideration to 2024 when we talked about having the flexibility to potentially consider funding this, without putting in not knowing what happens with interest rates and everything else, but all else being equal, you're going to have an additional $220,000 of interest carrying cost to do the project on the front end and make only interest only payments for the first couple of years. So the comment from Travis is, yes, you can do it. It's going to cost more. And he kind of ended it with, this would put us back into the area when we were more fiscally constrained. It would not put us in the same spot that we were in 2012, but it puts us back into that kind of financing mode.
So then what kind of increased cost do we expect if we wait till 2024 on the cost of the bridge?
You'd have to escalate it out on what the inflation would do. I think generally they say between 6 and 9% annually.
So that would eat up our 220,000 fairly easily. Right?
Yes.
So, sorry, were you done? Okay, so it sounds like to rehab it is considerably less cost-wise, but the maintenance.
But the long-term cost of that rehab is more expensive than replacing it.
Just for the record, how many streets can we fix for $6 million?
Well, per annual, we have about $1.5 million in general fund towards R&Rs, I call it. Concrete asphalt work, major rehab work that's not funded. You know, Agency Street isn't in that. You know, Mount Pleasant Street is not part of that. These are the residential roads, you know, minor arterials, collectors, things like that. We spend $1.5 million. We also have a little bit of extra money that we do My street staff spends about $200,000 in materials, and then we have an extra $300,000 in miscellaneous type funds. But I mean, if you're asking me $7 million on how many roads could I fix for that,
Depends on what you're doing.
It's 3 to 4 years worth of roads.
HMA work to do a mile of pavement, an HMA overlay would, you can do that with $1 million, a little under.
Mount Pleasant's a little bit more than that, so it's hard to, I mean, you're talking lane miles because Mount Pleasant's
Yep.
four lanes wide. I don't know what that answer is. I'd have to have that, but you can do asphalt cheaper.
I'll do it.
Actually, the costs have kind of equaled out between concrete and asphalt.
Nick, let's just do just sort of an estimate. You could, even if it's in that kind of a range, about a mile's stretch of street HMA for $1 million.
You can do 6 to 7 miles worth of asphalt work.
And, or if you're doing a project like Agency Street where you're doing a full depth replacement.
That's a $2 million job.
That's a $2 million job and you're doing a half a mile. I mean, so it kind of makes a difference on what kind of work you're doing on the street.
But we can fix a lot of streets with that.
Well, here's the thing, I would love to see Cascade Bridge replaced, but we do have a plan where we think we have some flexibility in 2024. At this point in time, I just don't think we have enough flexibility to accept the grant.
Me too.
So that's where I'm at. What is your recommendation?
Not accept.
I would say to not accept it, just based on the financial needs for other road infrastructure in town, and
you would know better than me.
And trying to jeopardize. I'm not jeopardizing that, but like you put that in question, you backlog. I mean, 4 or 5 years worth of roads.
Yeah.
But regardless, it sounds like it would cost us almost the same amount whether we did it today or did it today. It's just a matter of prioritization, which roads get done first, right?
Yes.
Give or take. Okay.
And I think, Nick, you told me at one time, because we do have alternate access to the park, that doesn't bode real favorably to get monies to repair that bridge, because we do have other entrances to
Other
the
monies,
park.
if you're gonna get 1.5 from the DOT, the likelihood of getting other funding sources, I've heard farm to market roads, I don't know that this would be eligible. It is a farm to market road, but being a 25,000 population town and having the other grant opportunities that we do, they tend to favor the smaller towns.
And you told me that because we have other accesses to the park, not just Cascade Bridge, that doesn't bode favorably to get funding.
Other funding besides this.
Yeah.
I feel confident that we can get that 1.5 again, but yeah, I'm out. I definitely agree with staff. Are you guys?
Yeah, we got to put the brakes on spending, sadly, but we would love to have it open, but not at this time.
It will be. It's going to be.
Are you
There's a
confident
season for
this is going
everything.
to come back around?
Well, the bridge isn't getting any better, so I mean.
Okay.
Now, the only thing that weighs in is the infrastructure in the state of Iowa as far as bridge work goes. There are more and more bridges becoming less and less quality. So do you have more competition in the state? In theory, but you're not losing any points for this bridge gaining quality. And it's, it's a closed bridge.
So, okay. Okay. That's where I'm at.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, number 5, sports market funding request.
This is been something that we've talked about a couple of times. Jason, you don't want to talk about this? No, you don't.
If you want me to.
Jay Hutch.
We've had the chamber kind of coordinating a sports market study that's being done on behalf of the chamber, the city, and what's the indoor facilities name?
Sports facilities works.
Indoor sports facilities. The 3 different groups. The council talked about being able to put the $7,500 into this study out of hotel motel tax. As they've gone through the process of selecting a vendor, as you can see in the material that is in your packet, the consultant that they had identified to do this could do the study for $33,000. If we were to be thirds of that, that's $11,000. A little bit more than the $7,500 that we'd budgeted out of hotel motel. Hotel motel is a fund that is very stressed and does not have another $3,500 to really be able to say that it can afford to put towards it. However, the Economic Development Fund within local option sales tax does have some flexibility, and this would be comparable to some other things that have been funded out of it over the years. So that being said, the request was made to that group to fund the additional $3,500 to this study. And that group did approve and bring it forward to the council for ratification on that. What is being looked at? What are the markets that are available to us? What does the current landscape look like for indoor facilities? That was specifically from that indoor committee, and what they're looking at is both the field and the turf. They've done a previous study with a different composition of primarily the field side, the turf side. The field is about the same as what it was, or the courts, I'm sorry. Maybe I can get some terms that are correct. The basketball courts are about the same as in the original one, but please do, because you're the one who's been involved in this for 6 years.
Jason Hutchison with Greater Burlington Partnership. Yeah, so, and I'm here just as one of the members on this, and the CVB is the organization that's holding the contract with the consulting group. But, you know, when in your budget discussions earlier this season, you were talking about the Recplex and how the market and the landscape has changed and how other communities have built competitive facilities. So this study is attempting to look at those markets and recommends best practices in terms of how do we ensure that we continue our market share here. And like the tournament you heard earlier, we're not suggesting every tournament should have fireworks, but what they attempted to do is go above and beyond to make sure that the experience that people are having is really good here. And so this study would cover the Recplex and the turf facility, and then the future planned court facility. And then at your recommendation, and so the base level study came in, I think 22.5 or right in that range. And then I think last time we had talked about this with you, you kind of encouraged us to look at the operational piece. How can the Recplex and the indoor sports facilities have shared operations or collaborate on tournaments in the future and things of that nature? And so that operational piece then came in at an additional kind of $10,000 additional charge to that base level consulting contract. And so that's where the differential is between your original $7,500 commitment and the remainder then.
So I don't know what pieces are going to be looked at over there. Some of the things that I've talked about, and I don't know if Kurt isn't here anymore. Eric is. Things that they've looked at from a staff side. Are our fees appropriate? The gate fee, is that an appropriate thing? Should we be having a different mix of tournaments that occur with our facilities? Along with, are there some things that can be done collaboration-wise on various events that may be able to tag off of both facilities at the same time, along with the management component? Is there a way to do management on both facilities together that would make sense for for all entities? Does that kind of hit at the things that we talked about wanting to make sure that we got done? Mm-hmm. And I don't know if then you're on the Economic Development Committee.
Yes.
And with the board or that group had recommended this being brought forward. Do you have any comments on that?
Yep. So we talked about that, and we talked about it for quite a bit actually. The Economic Development Committee, and yeah, there was some good back and forth, and I think eventually we got to the point where we realized that that committee and its funds, it's what you would call bank of funds right now, that it would be an appropriate use of the $3,500. So, and I stand behind that. So I don't know how you all feel about that.
I think if we're gonna build a new, if we're gonna spend almost 10 million, Jason, 10, 12 million?
Well, phase 1 and phase 2, we're estimating about 12 by the time everything's taken into consideration.
If we're gonna spend $12 million on sports facilities in our area, it's best to know how to get the best bang for the buck.
Yeah, and how to, you know, get each of those facilities to work well with each other and things like that. And I am not a big fan of studies, and I said that in the meeting, but it's this necessary evil, I guess. We don't have the resources to go out and look for that information ourselves, and fortunately for someone else, they figured out a way to do that, so.
I agree with her. I don't like the studies. On something like this, I'd rather not leave it to chance, and we probably better spend the extra money. I'm going to follow your direction on that.
Yeah, I mean, I believe there's a need for it. That's why we're supporting the some of the improvements out there in that area. To me, the most interesting piece is the operations standpoint. I think there could be some real gems there we might uncover. So I'm good. I'm good with it.
How's the son's baseball career going this summer?
We don't have the MLB knocking quite yet, but he's still hoping.
All right.
He's 12, but, you know, big aspirations.
Never too early to dream.
All right.
Okay, we're good?
Yeah.
Okay, good. That's yes.
All right, so that will be resolution of approving that. So we'll try to have that on this next agenda.
Okay. Nuisance fees.
Gave a handout before the meeting as well. Just wanted to review nuisance fees. These were last reviewed and updated in April of 2014. And as we updated our code a little bit, we're also transitioning to iWork code enforcement system. Wanted to kind of review where we stand and where we're at with the nuisance fees. So currently there's 4 different administrative fees for nuisances, depending on whether it's the first or subsequent abatement on a property in a calendar year, and whether the owner pays prior to the city council assessment by resolution or after the resolution certifying the cost to the county. Part of the discussion in 2014 was to increase fees in order to improve the compliance with property maintenance standards through the increased fees. The feeling that a higher fee may result in more compliance with property where owners would not want to incur such a high fee. So prior to April 2014, the fees were $30 and $50 upon abatement by the city, and $65 and $105 upon approval of resolution by the council. And those went to $70 and $150 upon abatement by the city, and $100 and $200 upon council resolution. So they went up significantly in an effort to try and curb some of the nuisances that were going on. Just general observation by staff, not a direct tracking on it, that we're hoping to gain better with iWorks is a better tracking system, but based on observation, nuisance staff, administrative staff, the higher fees has had minimal impact on repeat offenders of nuisance violations. These are typically out-of-town property owners or just vacant properties, properties that they're basically going up for tax sale or tax sale investors. So haven't seen that impact that we'd hoped or had been hoped with the increase in fees. The majority of calls or complaints that staff receives on an abatement when someone gets a letter saying you owe this amount is that the letter requesting payment of the fees is that there's an administrative fee at all. So they're just complaining, why don't you just do this for me? Basically just a service the city should provide, not necessarily the amount of the administrative fee, but why there's an administrative fee at all. And then they don't want the fees to go on their property taxes. So they're less concerned about the difference between whether they pay before it goes to council or after. It's more, I just don't want this on my taxes, and why is there administrative fee at all? So the savings between payment before and after council resolution does not seem significant in those conversations. So part of this coming forward is we're transitioning to the iWorks code enforcement system. We feel it'd be more efficient to maintain fewer fees associated with the nuisance properties. So doing away with separate fees for payment prior to or after council, and either having one flat fee or a first and subsequent fee. This would also reduce time spent on nuisance payment letters for staff and confusion about the amount owed by the property owners. So I guess just in our opinion, based on our conversations with people that call, it's less concern about, well, I have to pay $30 less or more if it goes to resolution. I just don't want this to go on a tax sale, and why do I pay an administrative fee? Trying to explain that to them at all. So that was kind of a discussion. Just for example, Tabitha got together, this is May's nuisance abatements. These are how many letters we send out, just with how many you have to pay, and we have to figure everyone, whether they're paying before or after, and what that amount is. So it is a time-consuming thing on our end, but also then being able to track it in iWorks would be simpler if we just had either a flat fee or a first-time offense, second-time offense, whether it's paid first or second. So we hadn't done much looking at other communities yet. Just wanted to see what council's thoughts are before we do anything or bring forward any recommended changes, or see if you have recommendations.
I like that you're going to try to be more efficient. I've got no issue with it. It goes right along with kind of where we were, or where we've been for the last few years, where we've been trying to go. So I've got no issue at all. Council?
Since the higher fee seemed to have minimal impact, can we just go with the fee upon council resolution? Have that just be the flat fee?
That'd be up to you. Talking about fees, right now we have 4 separate fees. Just getting that down to whether they pay before council resolution or after, it doesn't change the fact that we've abated a nuisance and had to process that property, and then tracking in our system. It'd be easier if it was $70 for first offense, $120 for second, or $100 and $150 or whatever that is. But just maintaining in our system 4 separate tracking records going forward is looking to be difficult, but not to say we can't.
Council?
I'm good with what recommendation you'd like to make, Eric. So you're going to be working with this system, so we need to know, but I'd be all for making the fee code a little simpler for both staff and for people.
So this was, we went to a tiered structure, at least that penalty, the higher amount.
Mm-hmm.
Was that done like 3 years ago?
April 2014.
And what was the purpose behind why that was done?
Trying to have that second offense be a deterrent of, it's a high enough fee that you don't want that second offense.
And that was driven from a council perspective, that was pretty much demanding that we do that as a way to try to keep people from having second offenses. Has it made any difference? And I'm sorry, maybe you addressed.
Yeah, not significantly on our end. I mean, we're seeing the same. You see the second offenses, and it's either derelict property owners that are out of state or out of town, or properties that have gone abandoned. I showed them, this is May. It's the same people every I guess last couple of years that are having the same properties be second offenses, and we haven't seen that downtick in second offenses. The people that get them, that it's unusual for them to get even one nuisance abatement, they get struck by the fees, and they're pretty diligent about not having that happen again. The ones that do care, maybe they had a slip up or something, but those that have those second offenses reoccur, it hasn't really deterred them. They're not coming in saying, oh, I need to do something about this. They're just building up fees. And
yeah, if nothing else, the second offense ought to be a lot higher.
So they're not going to pay regardless. It's going to go for tax sale, and then it's just a hindrance on someone else buying it, because now there's maybe $2,000 in fees for $300 in assessment and our actual cost, and now it makes it difficult to do something with it.
Gotcha.
So.
I think you're in the right lane, man. Council, we're good?
So we'll bring something for, might not be next meeting, but the following meeting on some options.
Sounds good. Okay, number 7, garbage. James.
All right, based off of where the conversation was at the end of the last meeting, we talked about wanting to see what a tiered rate structure would look like, and still allow for garbage bags to be used. So in your packet, just to put in perspective of where some other communities are, Davenport, Muscatine, West Burlington, Fort Madison, Keokuk, Ottumwa, Cedar Rapids, Dubuque. And the information that's in there is what Don has provided at previous meetings. The breakdown of what the different places charge for the base, 35, 65, 95 gallons, depending on who they provide, what they have allow for, whether they do or don't allow the extra trash tags, whether recycling was included, and then to give that overall fee on the right that I tried to do for comparisons. Comparisons are kind of tough because every landfill has a different tipping fee. So without knowing what their I mean, it's just that's just what we have to work with what we have. So you may have another landfill that doesn't have as high of a tipping fee at the landfill as what we do, but we have to deal with where we're at. But I did want to look at how we would kind of ballparked out in comparison in that smaller table. We can put in a pricing structure that has a tiered charge that fits fairly comparable to the other communities that are doing this. You can see for the other communities that you got all kinds of different philosophies over what is being offered. Some are offering only the small container, some are offering a mid-sized container, some are offering only the large container. Some of them have a flat fee structure, some have a very aggressive increase in prices, and then others are just a fairly small variance between them. So there isn't a right or wrong approach to how you do this. Everyone's done it a little bit differently. Something that I would note with how our current pricing structure is set up with what our fee is for a 30-gallon container and then the $2 tag system. Most folks who have a significant amount of garbage, or well, I don't know if I should say most. Well, maybe I should.
Well, just speak from your experience, Jim.
There aren't many people who they pick up that leave as many tags as I have as much tag garbage as what I do. Is that fair, Don?
Yes.
That's fair. Majority of those who do use that much garbage will use another hauler with a 90-gallon container out front because it is cheaper to have that 90-gallon container than it is to pay the tag fee. So to some extent, we've got a system that there are other alternatives that are ways to work around our pricing structure currently. So if you change the pricing structure to get more to where you're not forcing folks to other market competitors, you can potentially see a different stream through our system. It doesn't change anything about what goes to the landfill. But with that in mind, trying to look at what does it make sense for a tiered pricing structure between the different areas. And I looked at the 15, 17, and 1950 for the 35, 60, and 90. And I guess the main reason is if we have a $2 tag, once you reach a point of someone using one $2 tag in a given month or potentially using one $2 tag in a given month, it incentivizes moving up to the larger container size. And we do have a desire to see that the larger container from the solid waste department, they would prefer to have the 65-gallon container over the 35 because it's ease of their being able to get the garbage out of it. You have less chance for things to get stuck in the throat of it. So having a pricing structure in there that creates a little bit of incentive to move to more of that as being the standard size container is preferential down there. That still provides the option for those who want to have the smaller container because they never generate that much garbage flow, or it's an easier container to use. And you also still have that $2 tag system that somebody can set out that way too. Does it work for generating enough revenue for the lost revenue on tags? Because you'll still have revenue on tags, but nowhere near what we currently have. And then the increased costs to cover to cover the, putting on the units on the back of the trucks, and then to buy all of the containers. I think it does. But this is looking at who's gonna go what size, and just an estimate. I put in here 35% of folks staying with the more the 30-gallon size, about 60% going up to, I guess 55% going to 65-gallon, and 10% going to 95. That would be close to what other communities have seen. Other communities are probably about, would that be fair, Don, that you'd see about a 30-60 split between the 30 and 60-gallon containers in places that have done it? Somewhere in that neighborhood. So that's, I'm trying to match about what happens. Now, you may not get that kind of switch. Maybe only 40% move up to the 65-gallon container. Well, I can't know for sure what'll happen in that process. If you were to go through the process of putting in a system like this, part of what Don had done previously in some of his communications is you'd probably want to go out and do it. You'd be implementing that program. You'd be doing a survey of folks that is saying, what size container do you want? People have to choose which one they're going to do. The automatic default would be recommended to be the 65-gallon unless they select something else. With an automatic default there, that's probably why, and that's what most communities, I think, do, is to go to that 65-gallon on the automatic default. And that's probably why you see about that 60-30 split. The majority of folks are going to go with the standard container. It's the ones who have a desire to do something different that are going to choose one of the other options. You know, what are the other fees? You know, I put there in the sheet the 15, 17, and 19.50, an extra trash tag staying at the $2. And I tried to think of what made sense for realistic fees on the additional containers. If someone had a second 65-gallon, $8 a month, and an extra 95-gallon, $10 a month. Certainly those two are within some level of flexibility. I didn't know exactly where to go with it. The only perspective I could think of on that, without doing a more in-depth review than what we'd done with other communities, the last town I was in, I think it was $5 for an additional 90-gallon. So I don't think that we want to be that low, but I also want to make sure that you keep it realistic and you don't incentivize someone going to a second service, again, with a fee structure that gets too high that someone says it's cheaper to go with someone else for that extra pickup. And it put in there a cart change-out fee of $30. You see, does that match about what you'd seen or similar to what you'd seen in other communities, Don?
Yeah, 25.
I think usually it's 35.
So you've seen 35 in other communities. And what you're trying to cover there is you don't want a whole lot of switching going on. I mean, you know people have changes that come up, and so that option needs to be there, but it is time and labor intensive to be switching out carts and repairing carts and the other things that go along with this program.
So I like everything about what you've laid out here, except maybe possibly increase the extra trash tag dollar amount.
I was gonna say the same thing.
Yeah.
In order to incentivize that people are picking the trash can appropriate for them.
Yeah,
I agree, because we wanted to eliminate the scavenger animals from getting in the bags, and that would be one way to discourage that.
The extra trash tag up in Davenport's up at $4. I mean, that's really what they're doing, is trying to strongly encourage people.
And I was, you all know I was in Britain last week, and my in-laws have the 35-gallon can, and they live in a square, and there's 8 townhomes or whatever on this square. and they all had the 35-gallon can, and it was their trash day, and they had about 30-mile-an-hour winds, and I went out in the morning, and every single one of them was knocked over. It's just the base is not very big. They're typically top-heavy, and then when the trash guys came to empty them, 4 of the 8 cans they had to pull off, and they had to loosen up the stuff on the bottom, and then they had to put it back on the thing in order to empty it again. So those are problems we're going to run into on this.
I follow you there, Matt, but one of the things we have to consider is the unique characteristics of our town, the small alleys and and the small garages that weren't built even for large automobiles or trash cans. So sometimes aesthetically, we're going to get into a lot of 65-gallon, 95-gallon cans just sitting around when they could get by with the small one that they could tuck inside their garage. So I'm concerned that the larger can may not fit in some small garages or alleyways very well.
Yeah, I would definitely, I think our trash tag ought to be either $3 or $4 to encourage the move to the 65-gallon. I do want to retain the 35-gallon can for those residents that are concerned that they can't move it or they can't store it or they don't have the space. Then the big thing comes down to is the additional fee, the can, and whether where the fee structure is now. Is $2 enough difference to, you know, or should it be, you know, should it be $3 or $4 in between the cans? You know, if your trash tag, I think that should be expensive enough to move a person to the 65-gallon can if needed, or even the 95. The nice thing about having the trash tag is, you know, I do think we could still allow some of those residents that are just using a kitchen bag to take it out. They're not the ones we have to worry about. They're the ones that are diligent, that take it out the day it's supposed to be done, right before it's done, and then they're gone. It's the people that are hoarding the trash is where I'm concerned.
I'm fine. I like the way it's been laid out here. I think it's good, except for increasing that trash tag to $4. And the default can will be the 65. Okay.
But you are looking at, where are we at now on 35-gallon? We're on a normal trash can now, Jim. We're at 13 or 12, or what's this represent as an increase?
So we're at, effective July 1, we're at $14.25.
So it's a 75-cent increase.
See, I'd like to see no increase for the 35.
Would that be possible if we increased the fee that came in from the extra trash tags? If we went to 3 or 4 on that, would we be okay?
I don't think there's any way to measure it.
There wouldn't be.
75 cents a kilometer.
I like the concept. I am having some concerns with if our city's going, if this is going to work for us. I've talked to a few communities, and they're kind of similar to ours somewhat, but they're not newer communities, and this setup doesn't work for everybody. So this obviously we're going to have some type of hybrid of, you know, of this automated system. You know, how far are we going to be able to take this? Okay, let's even cancel that out. Here's my bottom line. My bottom line is I don't think that the people that are using 35-gallon should have any type of increase. If we're going to do this, I want to do this not on anybody's back. I think we should be able to find a way to do this, and anybody that's not changing their service ought to be able to stay with the same number. Then everything else would make the adjustment. But on the 35-gallon, this is going to affect, even going up on that, it's going to affect, I know, it's just, I agree with what Mr. Renneria said last week. It's only 75 cents here, it's only $1.25 here, but for a lot of people, all of those things add up. And every time those little tiny expenses come, it's starting to hurt people. Well, and I just think we need to be super mindful of that. We've got a lot of elderly people that live in this community that are on fixed incomes, you know.
Well, it does follow the price increase in July too. So it's even at 70, even though it's 75 cents, it's actually a bigger jump than that because we just increased price. So I understand what you're saying there.
But don't overlook the fact that we have spent the last 3 months trying to figure out how to make this work so that we're not seeing a significant increase. I think a 75-cent increase is doing pretty good. It's still seeing the progress in the program. So we can't tell people that their bills are never going to go up.
I never said that we could tell people that their bills are never going to go up, but sometimes there's no getting around it. Sometimes we're implementing the increase, and here we're implementing the increase.
I understand that.
Where we at, guys?
Well, I think it sounds to me like the majority would like to see this be proposed with the change in the tags to $4.
I agree with the tags
Yeah.
going up.
Yeah.
I think that's has to be done.
So
Sorry,
you're okay with if we took trash, the 35 gallon 14, I'm just trying to get this in my mind, 14.25, the 65 gallon to be 17, and the 95 gallon to be 19.50, $4 trash tag. Is that what you want?
Or even on the 95 a little bit higher, but yeah, that's pretty much, that resembles where I'm at, yes.
The problem is it would have to be significantly higher because the percentage of 95 gallon users is going to be about 20% less than the 35 gallon users. So you'd almost have to raise that by about $1.50 in order to make up that difference. Is that right?
I think we're gonna make some back. Well, we are gonna make some of that back in tags. We're gonna make some of that with go jump into the 65.
Well, but theoretically, we're not going to make any of it back in tags because the tags are being set up to encourage people to go to the larger can. So potentially, we may not have any tag revenue because the people who were using tags are going to jump into the larger can. That's why we need the bigger ones priced right. That's
But then that's also offset by the potential cost savings of work comp and insurance mod rate. You know, that's the back end stuff that we're not looking at. So
we're not going to see that for a while either.
Right.
But I'm fine with where it is in front of us today, outside of the increasing the trash tag.
What if we 17? What about? And because we don't have a way to track how many people are going to have 35 cans, so you're not sure what your outlay is going to be. So that's going to be the problem.
I mean, we may. I talked to Levine's earlier today, and I wanted to just kind of get as much information as possible. And they said that they went out and put all these smaller cans out, and they started getting calls almost immediately. People wanted to upgrade to the larger can because they found that it was easier to move than they thought it was going to be, and they found that they were actually had more space and could use that space. So they saw a pretty good decrease in the number of 35 gallon cans that they had out there.
Do you know, did they have a fee to upgrade?
I don't know. I didn't ask.
Okay.
Don, any last minute words that you'd like to share? Any wisdom, my friend?
Sounds good.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you, Don, for your work on this.
Yep.
No doubt.
Thank you, Don.
All right, guys.
Well, okay, so let me ask you the question. If you leave the 35 the same price, how do you pay for it? Because you don't have the capital left to.
You know what I want. I want man or money. That's what I want. And I think that'll cover it. Here comes Don.
Couple of things. One is that in order to handle, whether you're handling the 35 or 65 or the 95, you'll have to have a cart tippers on the trucks. So even though they're using the 35, there is a cost associated with upgrading all of the trucks in order to handle the commercially made wheeled cart. Whether they 35 should have to pay any of that increase or not, that's of course your decision on that. The other thing is we see a lot of 33 gallon cans out there that are what we refer to as snow coned. Sometimes there's a lid, many times there's not a lid. But they have bags that stick out and above the can, 2/3,
Why are you
3/4
staring
the
at me
way.
right now, Don?
Because you're the mayor.
All right.
And so that they snow cone the can, the bags are sticking up. People are gonna wanna use the 35, and they're going to, with a hinged lid, there's gonna be a temptation to put as many bags in that 35-gallon can. I think Matt was commenting about some of the cans were crammed such that the men had to manipulate the garbage to try to get the can emptied. And it takes more time to, mess with the can that way. All the programs or all the websites that I looked at virtually said lid must be closed. We've historically said the 33-gallon can, the garbage should not exceed above where the lid should be able to fit onto the can. Of course, again, many cans don't have lids, and it's our fault because their lids fly away in 30-mile-an-hour winds and such, and they blame us for that. But these are hinged lids, so they'll stay on there. But virtually every program at every website I've looked at says the lid must be closed. That doesn't mean it's halfway open like there's an Oscar inside trying to get out. It means the lid is to be closed. So if they want to use a $4 trash tag, if that's what you want, to put extra trash on top of the can with the lid closed. That's fine. But the snow-coned lid is not going to be accepted. It will be left.
And I think it's important that we just make sure that communication gets out.
That's right.
Right on.
So,
I do think there are a lot of people out there that will be able to use the 35 successfully. And because they're load generators, they may choose to do so because of space constraints. I don't think that they'll really be any easier to handle than the larger cans. But they may have special needs or requirements, space allotments that they feel they have to use a 35. And hopefully they'll be able to use those without snow coning that can. The lid must be closed.
I had a gentleman who was showing me his property down up on North Hill, and he was actually setting it on a ledge, right? It's up above the shoulders. I'm not very tall, but I'm 5'8", and it was up above my shoulders, and he was expecting us to lift that down and then lift it in the truck. So even with the tipper, that's going to be a tough one, because and that's the kind of guy or person that I think needs to have this 35-gallon can option. Because in my mind, that's after we get this place, then we need to go see him and say, okay, no, we can't do that anymore, because we're still going to have a claim there, or a potential claim. So,
do our rates go down? Semi-automatic?
So, what do you mean rates go down?
Work comp rates.
You'll have,
claims.
I mean, our work comp claims, you would hope to have fewer claims. I don't know what that will mean for
Fewer
what
injuries.
we'll see. But we kind of talked about, we had one major claim that cost close to $200,000, $175,000 over the course of the last couple of years. Now, that does not get paid out of solid waste. The way our work comp is set up, we're
Cash money.
pretty much, I want to say partially self-funded. We have a stop loss. So all of our departments pay a pro rata share of work comp, and we pull that money into an account, and then as we have claims, we make those payments out of there. So if you have over the long run fewer claims occur out of solid waste, that savings is hopefully spread out over everyone, because we change the overall allocation, that what we have to ask, we're able to reduce how much that is over time. So, I mean, even if I were to say, your guess on what happens with claims, it's not all saved in this area, but it is to the benefit of the community as a whole.
Okay.
So that's where I have a hard time being able to try to answer the impact.
So what's the next step? So is this going to be on the agenda for the meeting on Monday then, and we would approve this, and then you go ahead and have the firm or the company come in, they send out the surveys, people send them back, and then they start coming into town and putting together cans and dropping them off, right?
Yeah, it's something like that.
Okay.
Maybe not Monday.
No.
Oh, come on.
It's going to be quite a process.
Okay. So when can people start to expect to see cans in their yard?
Well, I think I mentioned at an earlier meeting that the way I envisioned it and understand the process, I am assuming, are you going to want a city logo on the can?
I would imagine so.
Right, so.
Does it save us any money if we don't?
I think the cost of a template is somewhere right around $650, $700, and that's the one-time fee, and then
the overall cost of the carts is going to be $480,000 or so.
But I think I said to the council that I think it was going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of up to a 4-month process before the cans would be in use.
I almost think you have to have the logo on them to make it easier to track. That's ours, you know, even though it has a serial number. I thought it was stuck there.
Yeah.
For that kind of cost. If you had said, oh, it's thousands of dollars less, then I would have probably considered otherwise. But
So how are we going to pay for this?
That's what your set fees for on here. The solid waste is one that we try to have operate to where it's raises revenue necessary to cover the cost. And you do have funds on hand. Not enough to just cash outright purchase containers. They would most likely be something that we would finance over a 5-year process. So you do that initial purchase of those containers and pay for them over a period of 5 years.
with what funds? Just
Solid waste fees. The first year has some higher costs because as you talk about outfitting the tippers and putting them in the back and the cost of the initial program, you probably have you might have $100,000 of expenditures additional in that first year that we need to cover. But there's adequate funds in there to make that happen.
I would like to make one other comment too.
Yes, please.
Last time we met, you were talking about citywide cleanup program and maybe considering a change to that. I too would like to see a change to that program. To what exactly, I haven't figured out in my head how to do it. There's various options that are utilized out there in different communities to allow the disposal of bulky items, what I'll call bulky items, furniture, things. Some communities just identify or define a bulky item as something that doesn't fit into your trash cart. But there's various programs out there, and I could see having the carts in use, especially if people have the larger cart, larger than the volume they normally would use for just trash only, that many of the smaller items that get set out and unfortunately get torn up and strewn about by scavengers during citywide cleanup and make a mess for the community and make a problem for the individual household that set out just such a nice pile and then someone comes through and tears through everything. Many of those items are items that are small enough that could fit in the cart over the course of weeks or months, and they wouldn't have to deal with that. And then the bulky item would be something else. And some communities provide a free pickup of a bulky item at a household at a certain frequency. Other communities have programs where you make an appointment and you pay a fee for the collection service for them to pull up to your place and pick up material. That makes it more difficult for the scavengers, of course. But I think that I would certainly want to explore, and I'm making you aware that I have a concern for the time it will take us to do the carts. To continue on with the citywide cleanup program as is, I think is going to be problematic. And so I'd like to explore the avenues that would be available to us. We're running an annual program, so our next pickup would be, our next scheduled program would be next April. So we have some time, but I do think the current program is problematic for a cart program.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that, Don.
I agree. I really like what Davenport was doing, and they eliminated it as well. They saved the cost of the citywide cleanup, and they went strictly to, I think it was a $10 or $20 fee. You make a phone call, you put everything out on the curb, and then you set an appointment, and they'll come pick it all up. That way we don't run into the scavenger issue. We still provide the service necessary, and I'd like to think that the $20 cost would cover the costs.
Are you talking eliminating it?
Yeah.
Modifying.
Changing it to some other format. I understand, and I think that the scheduled pickup is certainly a viable option, or at least part of the concept of a citywide cleanup program. But I think that probably a significant number of our customers who hardly use our current citywide cleanup program are not likely to be the ones that would call and prearrange a pickup like that. Now, maybe if it was a landlord or something like that, they might. So I'm attracted to the larger container concept and realizing that you have that space and utilizing it on a regular basis to eliminate many of the smaller things. And then someone had suggested, well, they like the idea of the drop-off that planning Nuisance has had, where they've had large, like 20-yard containers sitting in a parking lot, and people bring items to that for disposal. Well, for bulky items, there's a lot of people that don't have vehicles that can handle that type of thing. So the program would have to have some means and mechanism to deal with that. It could be, I think you used the word hybrid. You know, the cleanup program could be changed to have a number of parts to it that would enable people still to get rid of their material. It's just that.
While you're thinking about that, if possible, is there any way we could try and create a grass or a lawn leaf vegetation sticks or something drop-off point? It's kind of like what West Burlington has, maybe out at the Armory.
Well, I have two comments. One is that many, many years ago when I got involved, around 94, 95, when the city manager approached me and asked me if I would take oversight responsibilities for solid waste, one of the things the council at that time said was, we do not want you competing with the private sector for yard waste. One time, yard waste was picked up with garbage. It went into the truck, it went to the landfill and was buried with the garbage. The federal government came in and to try to save space in landfills, made it illegal to put yard waste in with the garbage. And the city of Burlington just dropped the ball completely and just said, we can't pick it up anymore. You have to figure out what you do with it. And there was probably a gap of a period of time that passed before some of the private haulers picked up the ball and made a yard waste collection program for them. And then when the city went to the curbside recycling program solely, they used to have 2-yard containers scattered throughout the city for recyclables at parking lots at the various grocery stores. And they had the curbside program at the same time. But very few people were using the curbside program, and the containers were an issue with contamination and that. And so the city, this council decided we're going to promote curbside program. We're going to eliminate the 2-yard containers. And I think in an effort to appease some of the upset, they opened a drop-off out on Summer Street by the airport. And it was utilized for grass, for leaves, for branches, and it became a major headache for the city staff to deal with it. And after about, I think, 3 months, they decided to close it down. It would be very popular, I'm sure. There would be a lot of use of that location wherever you choose to do it, but it's going to cause a lot of issues as far as for staff and such to have to handle it. And the surrounding properties, the traffic, the litter, that's going to go along with that.
You guys good?
Well, okay, so, let's, because last time we were giving very clear direction, so are we okay with the rates that Jim has proposed?
I'm not.
I am.
I want donut on the, nobody's down with that, on the 35 gallon?
So you're
just gonna go up on the 35 gallon for the older folks? Yeah,
How much is that total? So we've got the 75 cents and then the proposed increase for July. So what's the total increase?
$1.
It's $1.
Okay, okay,
So
thank you.
it's $1 total. It's not, it's
Okay,
not.
75.
Yeah, it's not. It's $1 more a month. I'm wondering if the 65 gallon isn't high enough, and I know equivalent cents here, but I'm wondering if the 65 shouldn't be $17.50 and the
Maybe it
19 should be $20.75, which is a $3.25 split. And if you raise even if you raise your trash tag $3, to me that's still the incentive to move up. But if we did that, $17.50 on the 65 gallon, $20.75 on the 95. Leave $14.25 on the 35 gallon, not increase it, but increase your trash tags $3.
I know it doesn't sound like
Yes.
much, but I think if we continue to increase the price of those 2 cans, you're gonna see more people grab onto the 35 gallon cans, and then you're gonna see more people continue to do what they're doing today, which is
Not if we get the information out and tell them, hey, we're not picking up any more snow cones. I guarantee you, the snow cones don't get picked up, they're gonna have to figure something out.
Snow cone or not, I think it's just gonna continue to lead to issues.
Yeah, well, what I want to come out of here today is where we're in somewhat agreement of rates so we can have staff move forward, if that's possible.
I think the structure that's been presented with the $4 tag does a great job of providing the service while doing what we wanted it to do, which is the people that want the larger can pay the larger percentage of that.
But
yeah, we don't want to increase those 2 other ones so much that.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, is $2 enough? Because $2, you're gonna, is that enough of a difference? Especially in the 95 gallon can. I don't think you think it is.
It's a $3.
No, I don't think it is.
I don't
No.
think it is either. It's a $3 increase. It's a $3 increase over where they're gonna be now.
Well, I mean, but they're getting a whole lot more space though. That's the.
They're getting a double size.
Yeah, they're going from.
And they're saving on the trash tag.
And like Don said, there's fixed costs associated with even the 35 gallon cans.
So, yeah, I mean,
I want to implement this program. I really do. Not again. I don't want to see the 35 gallons go up a penny. Not from this. I don't. We're changing the trash cans, understandably so. We're changing this program. I get it. It's not supposed to hurt the taxpayer. Not everything that we do should have to hurt them. And I just feel like I feel like we can find a way to make the 35s go at the same. And again, obviously, nobody's feeling it, but no, I've talked to a lot of people that are retired, and they said, well, our trash is never going to go up. They don't have any problems. They don't have to worry about us snow coning. But why are we having to pay more to implement this program? What did we do wrong? And
I agree, and it should be user driven. So that's why I'm asking. I would be fine with the 35 gallon can staying right where it's at, 14.25. But I do think it's a price split of, if you went to $17.50, which is only 50 cents more than what was proposed, that's $3.25 difference. And then the 95 gallon can, if you did $20.75, that's $3.25. And maybe that should be just $21. So it's,
regardless, that's not a whole lot when
I
you're
know,
thinking
that's what I'm
about we're
saying.
jumping from a 35 gallon to you're hammering trash. I mean, man, you guys are just packing trash away.
Well,
so I mean, I feel like that. I don't feel like that's asking too much for those type of people for no's. No offense, but
you can throw the Billipses in there because
I understand
we were spending a ton of
Don's
trash
concerns too, that they're just going to cram as much and then the guys can't get that out. Will they be notified that we're not going to pick up your trash anymore? This is, you need to go
They
up
got
to a
tags when
larger
people throw their own
can, or
stuff.
you need to buy the tag, because I really want to incentivize people to recycle. And I think the manufacturers are moving in that direction. I mean, you can even buy shampoo now that doesn't even come in a bottle. It's just a cake. Seriously, so we're going to see less packaging. Seriously, not that Shane would ever need that or anything, but.
Oh, that was nice.
But I mean, the manufacturers are helping us, the children growing up, the millennials, they see the beauty in recycling, they see the positivity of it. I think we're moving in that direction, and I with Shane, I don't want to charge these people more if they're going to move, but I don't want them stuffing the garbage in there either.
Well, if the rule is a volume of 35 gallons and the lid is closed, I mean, we could leave a tag saying, gee, your can was difficult to empty. But, on the site, I mean, it looks like everything is hunky-dory.
Because it's designed for that arm to tip it, not for you to have to claw it out of there.
I know people who have talked about having their little kids and they set them in the can and they
saw
say
that
jump
happen.
up and down.
I literally saw that happen.
And that, I certainly don't want to encourage that.
No, and I know the trucks are designed for the 65
But that's going on
gallon.
now, though, Don.
So.
Yes.
I'm just saying, they're kids jumping on them now.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not like going to the different trash cans is going to affect people being lazy or disrespectful or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
So, we're moving to this automated system to help a part of that process, so that I believe part of the problems we've had with guys is hurting their backs, is trying to get that stuff out manually when people are trying to cram stuff in. The bigger ones are the way to go. It's going to be cheaper regardless. Okay, let's taper this off then, guys.
Yes.
Do you have 3 people for as is?
I'm an as is with the $4
Yeah.
tag. Annie?
Yes.
That's 2 as is? Okay. Where are you at? Are you at the no increase at the 35 gallon?
I would like to see that as low as possible, and I don't want to encourage more litter because we get the tags too high. I think 3 would be fair on those.
I
On the
thought
tag.
what you just pulled out, man. I did.
I think I would be cool with the 35 remaining the same price it is now after the price increase in July, and then a little bit more in the 65, a little bit more in the 95, and then go to a $3 tag. We could always raise it more if we needed to down the road as far as the tag goes. But I do agree with you. The pushback that we've had is some of the elderly and the low volume trash generators are saying, why am I being penalized? The higher volume trash generators are looking at this thing, and I know I'm looking at it.
I'm loving it.
I'm saving money.
Loving it.
And so but I do think that we could have a little bit more split between 35 and 65. I don't think that's going to throw anybody off that's looking at 65. It's not going to throw me off for sure, because I'm still going to save money if I just buy one tag a month.
Man. I'm going big. I've
Right.
got extra things that I've always got to get rid of.
So
You know what I'm saying? Go big, Burlington.
That's where I'm at.
Okay, so
I like that.
All right, I know. How about this?
How about this?
I feel like I'm buying a car.
How about
All right,
it, Counselor?
So
Come
how
on.
about $14.75, $17.50, and $20? I'm just not comfortable with.
Where were we at on the 35?
With $14.25 is where.
Do you still want to, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, you still want to go up on 35?
Yes, because I'm not comfortable with keeping it the same, because
It's the same
I'm not
size.
going to get I'm not going to get a bigger can, even though I could probably use one then.
It's the same, but it's the same size.
No,
Why would
I'm
we-
saying $14.75 instead of $14.25. I feel like if we don't have any kind of an increase on that 35 gallon, like I said, I would gladly go up to the 65 gallon, but I'm not going to get an increase, I'm not
Man,
going to do it.
I'm going 95, and there's only me. My kid doesn't even like to be around me. Let me tell you something. Again, go big, Burlington. But here's the bottom line. Do we want to walk away from here when we could have said, no, we're not going to have any increase to grandma? You got to go to grandma's. No increase to grandma, to great grandma. We're going to hold the line for them. We're going to hold the line for them. As every once in a while we should do. But
the problem with
Why
that
does
is
everyone think that I'm all with my grandma? I want to charge her. I'm just
So
kidding.
my bigger concern is I understand that I represent every person in this community. I represent the old people, the young people, and everybody in between. And at the end of the day, I've talked to over 100 people, and I would say 30% of them had concerns with the increase in the price. And of that 30%, a much smaller percentage said we don't want it regardless of what the increase. The rest of them were okay with a minor increase. It was when we started to get into the $2 and $3 a month increases and staying in a 35-gallon can that they had concern. Everybody else was for this, and they've been pushing me to push for this.
It's your group, not mine.
And I get it, but we represent all the groups.
Right on.
So
you're speaking for yours, though.
Yeah, I understand that. So I don't see a problem with the fees that they are today. My biggest concern is 6 months from now, Don's going to say that 50% of the community took a 35-gallon can, and that their efficiency is slowed down, and we're having problems every day with trying to keep trash out of the community because we're only filling up 35-gallon cans.
And then we're also not creating that revenue.
And on top of that, we've also disincentivized them to call in and say, hey, I need a bigger can because we're going to charge them $30 more to switch it out.
Everything I've read and researched, though, Matt, says that the automated arm is much faster.
But it's not an automated arm.
A semi.
It's a semi-automated
but it's still
arm.
faster, is what I've learned. Unless the stuff's all crammed in the can.
But that's assuming we don't only have to touch it once. If we're cramming trash into the can, then we've got to touch it twice.
We don't pick it up.
Well, no, because right now, the guys, they can pick it up, they toss it, they put it back. That's way quicker than, I don't know how quick those arms go.
They're pretty quick.
But from what you've told us, it's that it's not.
I can cut an onion without a cutting board.
I was looking at a website that had the particular cart tipper that I got pricing on, and I believe that it said the cycle from the time the can is put on there, the guy pulls the lever, it's like a 5 to 7 second to tip the can. It's not, almost virtually every YouTube video I looked at, they tip the can and then they shake it a couple times and then they set it back down. So you're talking about 5 to 7 seconds to empty the contents of a can. And if it's wedged in there, it's going to be more than that.
I just, again, right now, what's everybody got? What size garbage cans do the citizens have?
33, many of them are snow coned and many of them have extra cans and extra bags outside.
Or they're hoarding trash inside.
Or they're hoarding the trash. Your goal was to consider the large carts and to look at how it would help reduce the nuisances and clean up the community.
And I will say that the people that I talk to that work locally in the solid waste, whether the Leans or Floyd's, did say that this program will clean up this community. So I'm confident that regardless of whatever we decide on the pricing structure, I think we're going to do a great job of providing people an opportunity to get rid of the trash that they've got.
Okay, guys.
So you're not going
back again to the numbers. No, man, I don't want it to go up, but not a cent.
I liked your proposal.
I think it'll work. Again, everybody's used to the 33 right now. People want to go big. People want to go bigger because they've got more junk. They don't want to spend the tags. Go big, Burlington.
So what are we doing?
So I guess what's going to pass is their plan. Since it's 2 to 3.
1425, no increase. The 1750 on the middle on the 65, 21 on the.
Is that right? 20.
Well, I don't even think you need to do that, because if you raise the 65-gallon can by 50 cents, you may not need to touch the 95-gallon can, because that 50%.
Most of them are going to go to the
65. Yeah, you got to remember 50% of the cans are going to be 65 gallon.
Yeah. And that's
so
what I agree with.
It's a marginal increase. And there's going to have to be some math done to determine what that number looks like.
Well, I just wanted to say, when I talked with the company that I foresee doing the survey, they said their historical experience has been 50% return the survey, which is a really good number. For when you send out the survey for the size of can to choose, they get 50% back, and the other 50% is commonly not responded to, and the default
would be
65.
Yeah, I would definitely say
complain about that.
The default's got to be the 65 gallon. That's where I'm at.
That's where I'm at.
Okay.
Peanut butter?
default 65 gallons?
Oh, yeah. That's
You're
what the
still-
trucks are designed for.
You're still increasing the 95 gallon can?
I'm willing to talk about that one. I agree with Shane on the 1425. I just think that 1750, it makes sense price split that way. You know, there's a price, to me, that makes by going up just a little.
And it might be of benefit for someone to switch to the larger can, and they can periodically get rid of extra stuff, although I'm all for bulk trash to keep it out of the landfill, so.
I just think a $3 difference is gonna incentivize people to go with a small can, and that not necessarily a can that's appropriate for their.
$3 a month, though, that's the same as one price, one tag.
One tag.
So if they did a tag every week,
So what do you want to do?
it's kind of a
Matt? You want to
no-brainer.
go 17, you want to leave it at 17 and 19?
I would prefer to see it stay where it's at. I mean, even go go down a quarter, like Annie said, and go up minutely on the 65. I just don't want that much of a difference between the cheapest can and then people start to step up, because I really think that people are going to say, listen, I don't care what it is, I want the cheapest thing on the plate.
I think if they do, we're gonna make our money back on the transfer $35, because they're
worried
gonna find,
about-
I'm serious, because they're gonna find out it doesn't
I
work.
get it, yeah, but they're not. That's my concern. They're gonna hoard trash. They're gonna do what they're doing today, which is gonna defeat the purpose of why we had this discussion.
You know, I don't see that problem, because most people the trash that they're hoarding is newspapers and boxes and stuff like, you know, nobody's hoarding leftover, you know, banana peels and stuff like that. Man, that stuff's gotta go, or it's gonna start stinking.
Take a drive.
They are.
They are.
Take a drive.
They are. They are.
Well, I'm just
Okay,
saying,
all right,
They
okay.
fill their
So
33 gallon can, and
let's-
then that goes.
We're
and then
talking in circles.
in,
Point of
so-
order. Okay.
Nice. Okay, we're at you work it out, it's not hard and fast. We've already made our declaration, we're at 1425 on 35s, they don't change. And then, Jimmy, you're the point guard, I believe in you.
I want to go $4 on tags.
Okay,
I'm cool with that.
I'm cool with that.
Okay.
What are they now?
see, I think that encourages more trash,
Yeah,
because
hold- yeah,
that's
hold
a
on. Yeah,
lot.
that's what I'm saying.
That's a
What are they now?
lot.
What
You
are-
just
No, okay,
have
so
a
if you were
company
to go- if
over,
you're gonna go-
and you don't have any tags,
If you're going to go with
and-
that argument, though, then I think
Tags gotta be up a little bit, because we wanna
I
encourage them
think
to go to the bigger trash can.
if we want to do that, I think that the same can be said about keeping the 35 gallon at $4.25 or $14.25. That also encourages people to.
See, I don't think so, because that's what everybody's used to using. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah,
we're
and we
changing it up, going
have a
bigger.
problem.
Well, we have a problem because they don't have lids.
have an ambition problem more than not
Well,
getting it to
they're
the
filling
curb.
it.
Listen, the three of us are at 1425, is that a lock?
Yeah,
And then,
I would say.
we believe in you.
If you do 1425, you need to raise revenue on the others, so you have to increase the prices. I mean,
Okay.
what you'd said, the 1750 and 2075 is what you have to do to make that kind of
Let's
work.
do that. And then the $4 tag.
I was just saying on the price, if it wasn't, if you were like, well, after reviewing it, you know, I'd really prefer for it not to be 1750, but 18. Well, all right, then come back with the 18, that's what I'm saying, but.
I mean, the other
You know
part of
where
that
we're
to
at.
take into consideration is the low-income households right now that are generating all that trash, that we're moving to the 95 gallon can, we're charging them $21 more every 3 months for trash.
Well, some of them will be going to the 65 as well, but they have to look at what they are not paying in tags per month too and deduct that, so there
But
may be
there's-
some type of increase.
There's a large
but
percentage of those people that are low income, keep that in mind as well.
Appreciate that. Are we good? Good. All right. Appointments.
Extra trash tag,
$4.
I've heard 2, 3, and 4.
I think we agree with 4.
Actually, I think off the top of my
I
head.
prefer
think the higher
3,
price
but
is
you have to
better
compromise
because-
sometimes, so.
I thought the higher price was better just because it would encourage to go to the bigger
To go to the
trash can to
65
get to
can,
eliminate.
I
yeah.
would say 4, yeah.
Okay, so 4.
Okay.
On the additional containers,
I think that if that's still,
the 95 has to go to 12.
Okay.
Otherwise, you lose, you
Yeah.
get some disparities.
Is the 65 all right, Jim? where it's at?
65 at 8 is fine.
Okay, that's fine.
Good.
I'm good.
Oh, okay.
Fix that puppy.
Number 8, appointments. Anything on that?
That'll probably be a next work, I don't know if next work session. It certainly won't be an action item for this next Monday.
Okay.
But it'll come up at a future work session then, council meeting.
Okay.
So we're not having the appointments this Monday?
No,
We're not gonna-
you were talking about the trash.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's talk about the appointments.
Okay.
Appointments? Any problems with that? Everybody's good?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm guessing we have not heard anything from,
We had a letter. We received a email from the young lady that was originally up for the spot, and she's removed her name from that.
It's saying that she's right there.
yeah.
It's saying that she's in on this.
You don't have your computer.
No, I don't.
It's saying she's considered when she's requested.
She talked about that process, and
When did this?
she pulled her name after the articles that were written and didn't like, I don't think the position that she was being put in on that, but after thinking through it, she still wants to be considered. She was interested in it, she just didn't.
She was put in a difficult
She was
situation.
uncomfortable with how it was being discussed.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so she will be
I had no problem
appointed
before.
as it
I
says.
don't think we have much choice in the matter.
Well, if she wants to do it, then
Yep.
more power to her.
Okay.
Everything else looks good.
All right.
Now, well, on the Civil Service Commission, so we've, just because I want to clarify, we had a conversation with the person whose term expired, so he's not going to be surprised that he's not going to be back on, because that's how this
Started
somewhat
the other
happened.
one, yeah.
So I want to make sure that we've reached out to these people as their terms are expiring and let them know that, hey, look, your term is up, and we do have somebody who's willing to serve. And in order to get to a gender balance, we're going to go ahead and do that. So I just want to make sure that we're contacting them, because being told that's not happening, so.
And I got some feedback on that too, and I thought it was an excellent suggestion. Someone said if someone's term is up, maybe 6 months out or something, we make an announcement or we make some postings or something, so we don't have this last minute flux and not the uncomfortable situation that we were all put in for everybody involved.
Okay.
So I thought that was a good suggestion.
Okay. Anything else? Mr. Teslin?
Sorry about Cookie.
Closing remarks. Welcome back to America. Closing remarks, peanut butter?
I can't think of anything. Caught me off guard. I'm
Okay.
speechless.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mr. Miller?
Well, so pertaining to trash, and I was going to say this, City Council, there's been a gentleman down on the riverfront picking up on his own time, picking up our riverfront, and if you happen to see him, please tell him thank you. And anybody picking up trash, tell him thank you, because there are people out there trying to do it, so.
Yeah, if you catch this guy's name, make sure you bring it back to me.
I will.
Okay, just want to say, give a big shout out to Shay. I was out to the Armory today out in Middletown, and he gave a speech to, did you catch that speech? Yeah, he talked to the guys afterwards, and I don't know, he had me so motivated, I went and climbed a couple of mountains before this meeting, and yeah, I think I'm going to go to the chief of police's house tonight for dinner, uninvited. I mean, I'm just feeling good about it, but it was a great event. They're going to be out there for the rest of the week till Thursday from 9 to 11. So those of you that want to get in shape, see what the Army's all about, or the National Guard, get to meet some world-class athletes as well. I'm going to go back out tomorrow morning for a little bit for the wrestling part, show off my wrestling prowess. Yeah, right. But anyways, it was just an awesome event, and it was just also good to see the representation of the police department. Again, the chief was out there with Major Grimshaw. I don't know who all was there, but we had 6 officers. 6 showed up, so just a good showing. It was a very good event. Looking forward to tomorrow and seeing what they do. But it started off, just want to say this and I'll move on, but it started 7 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago. It started with like 25 kids, and they had 250, 200, you know, it was quite a few kids out there today, so it's a great event. Great to see that going on. Maybe we can take a bigger role in next year, so I'll talk to you about that, Chief. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, of course. So this is a busy week. We have a ribbon cutting ceremony for our wonderful new police station.
Woo!
June 14th. I'm excited to attend that one. And then, of course, Burlington Steamboat Day starts. That's from the 14th to the 17th. And that should be a good time, all kinds of music. Then on the 14th is the farmer's market at 4:30. And then one of my favorite events, of course, this time of year is the Snake Alley Art Fair. And that's, you know, I'm not sure if they're going down Snake Alley this year, but it's all in that area. And that's June 17th, and that's from 9 in the morning to 4 in the evening. So make sure you get out there, and they have music and food, and it's just this whole day event. And
Nice
you get
art.
to support local artists and all kinds of local
There you
things.
go.
Yep,
Is your grandma gonna be there?
probably.
All right. Hey, you heard it here first. All right. Council.
I would just encourage everybody, if you haven't, get your Steamboat Days tickets. Support the event. It's going to be a good show this year. They've got a great lineup, so it's going to be busy downtown. That's it.
Your ribbon cutting that you mentioned at the PD is at 11 o'clock on Thursday morning?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
radio.
I can do it.
Can you?
Yeah, I can if you can't. Or do you want it, Linda? Annie?
I can do it.
Okay.
Can you do it?
Man.
Yep.
Good.
9 a.m., right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. And nothing else?
Oh.
All righty. Thank you guys. Have been lovely tonight. Good night.
Sorry about you, cookie dude. I was starving.